will land them on the U.S. Olympic team in Seoul, Korea. A few have been waiting for this race for the past 4 years, but only 3 will make it to Seoul as ABC Sports begins its summer-long coverage of the U.S. Olympic trials. Hello again, everyone. I'm Frank Gifford, and we are live from the roof of the Central Terminal Building at Liberty State Park in New Jersey. Today, ABC Sports begins its coverage of the U.S. Olympic trials with the men's marathon. And in the next 4 months, you'll see the U.S. Olympic team taking shape in such sports as gymnastics, track and field, boxing, swimming, basketball. And in just over 2 hours, we'll know who 3 of our Olympians will be as they come sprinting down the final stretch of this marathon course in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island. Also today, we'll bring you reports of the synchronized swimming trials in Indianapolis and the women's basketball trials in Colorado Springs. And we'll also keep you up to date on the NFL draft. And if you follow the draft, in the 6th round, Timmy Brown of Notre Dame, the Heisman Award winner, has gone to the L.A. Raiders. But we will bring you up to date on all of that that's taking place in New York. And later today, ABC Sports will present Mutual of Omaha, Spirit of Adventure Series, as 7 American women attempt to descend down the Boa River in Borneo. And this afternoon, we'll feature a dual meet between the U.S. and the Soviet Union in men's gymnastics. And for a report on that, let's go out to my colleague Al Trautwig. He's in Phoenix. Al?
Coming up later today after the marathon on ABC Sports, a very special men's competition, a dual meet, the United States and the Soviet Union in gymnastics. It will take place in Phoenix, Arizona, and already the world's best gymnasts from the Soviet Union and the best from the United States are warming up. I'm Al Trautwig in Phoenix, Arizona. The Soviet Union is the state of the art in gymnastics, and the United States is still trying to get its house in order, with the Olympics now only a few months ahead. We'll see you later on ABC.
All of that, much more. Again, we'll be covering the draft. Again, Tim Brown, the Heisman Award winner, was taken as the 6th pick in today's draft that's taking place right now. Right now, we're going to kick off our U.S. Olympic trials coverage with this weekend's featured event, the men's marathon. And to get us underway, here's Gary Bender. Gary?
The Olympic marathon is a dream for the long-distance runner. In 1908, Dorando Pietri's dream was destroyed when he was helped across the finish line and was disqualified. Johnny Hayes benefited from Pietri's bad luck. In 1936, Korea's Ki Chung-sung was forced to run under a Japanese name because his country was occupied by Japan at the time.
Horowitz scooping out underneath that top rope there to break the momentum. As the bell is gone, we're underway in this one.
From start to finish, but thought his dream was shattered when an imposter crossed the finish line ahead of him. And in 1984, the dream of a lifetime came true for 37-year-old Carlos Lopez. And today, the dream continues as over 120 American runners will try. Just 3 will go to Seoul, and today we'll find out who they will be. Today, ABC Sports presents live coverage of the United States Olympic trials of the men's marathon. It's an overcast day in the New York City area, and while the temperature looks favorable, it's a relative humidity and the wind the runners will have to keep their eye on. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Bender. 3 spots are up for grabs of the U.S. Olympic team. If that's not incentive enough, there's a $150,000 purse. It's the first time in history there's been prize money for this event. $50,000 for first, $25,000 for second, and the third place finisher will capture $20,000. We'll have more on that later in the program. Joining me, the former Olympian, Marty LaQuarrie. Marty, how will the prize money affect this race?
Well, it wasn't too long ago in 1972 when Frank Shorter and Kenny Moore held hands and intentionally tied when they won this race. That won't happen today. The $25,000 difference between first and second ensures it'll be a race to the finish, as well as the fact that the prize money goes down to 20th place. So in the past, when men felt that they were out of third place, they kind of jogged in. That won't happen today, as well as the fact that the runners have a longer time to recover between the trials and the Olympics, so they'll want a good, hard effort here.
Marty, it's quite obvious there's no clear-cut favorite in this race today.
We don't have a Shorter or a Salazar this time, and marathoners aren't like football players. They don't play every week. Most of the men here haven't had a hard effort in 6 months. Some of them haven't run a marathon in a year, so we'll see a lot of surprises. But there's one thing you can count on. There are a few men who will play greatly in the strategy of this race today. Of the over 100 men entered in the race, 6 would surprise no one by winning a ticket to Seoul today. Pete Fitzinger is the most consistent runner in the big ones. He won the trials in 1984 and was the top American finisher in Los Angeles. Pat Peterson is the boldest American runner, a front runner in every race he enters. The New Yorker has been training frequently on the trials course. That could be an advantage. Bill Dunikowski, a proven winner. The Michigan native is tough on hills and tough in bad weather. Hampered by injuries in the past year, he says he's healthy. Mark Kirk. Many thought he would be America's best marathoner by 1988. Today could be his chance to get back on schedule. Paul Gompers, a youth record setter at 19 5 years ago. 4 years at Harvard and 1 at Oxford have yielded consistent 100-mile training weeks and a near-perfect grade average. Dave Gordon, the sentimental favorite. A 4th place finish in the '84 trials was the motivation to train for 4 more years for a ticket to Seoul.
And Gordon feels he's in the best shape of his career. We're located at Liberty State Park along the New Jersey waterfront. This view comes from the top of the World Trade Towers, looking across the Hudson River, and a look back at the World Trade Towers and a spectacular skyline of Manhattan. It's an area rich in history, and with more on that, let's go to the start line, and here's Jack Whitaker.
Thank you, Gary. An awful lot of Olympic dreaming going on in this place where dreams have lived for a long time. You see over there is Ellis Island, and after our forefathers were processed there, they were ferried across to these railroad sheds behind me where they took off for Philadelphia, Boston, and Chicago and beyond for the American dream. Well, today, over 110 of their descendants are going to take off on this marathon that'll wind its way through a lot of well-used northern Jersey cities, whose citizens look across their rooftops to the shining towers of Manhattan and dream of fame and fortune. The athletes today won't appreciate that view. They'll be too busy handling this windy, difficult course and dreaming their own dream of fame and fortune, which rests upon finishing 1, 2, or 3 today and making the American Olympic team. This marathon then becomes the first 26 miles plus on the road to Seoul. It becomes for these athletes today a ferry from their own Ellis Island to their aspirations of Olympic gold as the Olympic tradition continues.
Thank you, Jack. We're moments away from the start of the Olympic marathon trials. At stake, 3 positions on the United States Olympic team. The U.S. Olympic Trials Men's Marathon. This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by Orange Orange, Minute Maid Orange Soft Drink. By Visa, the official card and traveler's check for the 1988 Olympic Games. By the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. And by IBM, the bigger picture, the people, products, and resources of IBM.
Just how orange does a Minute Maid orange taste?
Pardon me.
Minute Maid orange. It's the orange.
You might be surprised to find a long line of imported cars at your Chevy dealer.
with imported small cars, imported not-so-small cars. And now that you can get $1,000 cash back on a new imported Chevy Spectrum Turbo or $1,200 cash back on a new Chevy Nova, their prices are really small. So stop by your Chevy dealer and see them all, because to show you the entire line here, we'd need a much longer commercial.
The heartbeat of America, that's today's Chevrolet.
The start line at Liberty State Park on the New Jersey waterfront. The first half mile will be run on a grass surface, and through the course of our coverage, we'll be going out to join Larry Rawson, who will keep us posted on the leaders, and Catherine Switzer, who will try to keep abreast of what's happening in that battle for third place. And Marty, you always wonder what's going through the minds of these men as they approach the gun.
Well, it's a tremendously nervous point. There's probably no other event in the Olympics where you compete so seldom. So these athletes have pointed to this race without other competitions for a long time.
And so the field comes from all walks of life. One is a student at Oxford, another a dairy farmer. There's an aerospace engineer, and two are former college teammates. And Marty, all with a singleness of purpose, a berth on the U.S. Olympic team.
Right now, they seem to be stepping very gingerly. This is the only marathon in the world that starts on grass, and it has been rolled, but there are some bad spots in it. They're looking as if they're looking right in front of them. They don't want to train for 4 years and go down in the first 100 yards. So they're trying not to slip on this grass, and then they will enter about a 50-yard stretch where they'll be running on cinders, loose cinders, and they'll be very mindful not to have a stone kicked in their shoe, because to stop and take your shoe off at this point would almost put you out of the race.
Well, we also should mention they will finish on this grass portion the last half mile when they come back. Now, after leaving Liberty State Park, the runners will negotiate the road under the Jersey Turnpike and then the first 6 miles in Jersey City. But, Marty, let me ask you something. It's been 5 years now since an American marathoner has cracked the 2:10 barrier. It's going to be hard to do today.
Oh, this is a very, very tough course. The race is really for the 3 places. There should be a lot of strategy. In the last Olympic trials in 1984, only 4 men ran a personal record because of the nervous tension and everything that surrounds this race. So it's doubtful we'll see many men run their best times, let alone a 2:10 marathon heel. This course is very tough. It's very windy. There are a lot of hills. This is not a course that was designed to yield a fast time, as most marathon courses in the world are. This was a course that was designed to pick the 3 strongest runners to go to the Olympics.
You could see, it looked like they were having a little trouble with the footing there. A couple of rabbits, that's Chris Mueller and Chris Pryor, who are leading, but we don't expect to see that hold very long. The guy, though, that might really get out front early is Pat Peterson. He's a New York native. I expect him possibly to come out and set the pace. That's been his trend in the past.
Well, they certainly are centering a lot of the pre-race controversy over whether Pat will go out and take the lead. He did that in New York in October, and he lives in Long Island. He's the man in this field that's most familiar with the course, which I think is a very important thing on this course. Each of these hills has a different character, and you only learn to run them by familiarity. So he has a real ace up his sleeve in that he knows the course.
Now you can see they're just about to leave that grassy area. They're entering a cinder area. Now we'll come on to the blacktop. So they've covered about a half mile in distance at this particular point. Now, you mentioned familiarity with this course. This is a very hilly course. A lot of people feel that the person that will fare the best is a guy that can change gears from time to time.
There's a lot of, you need to be a good athlete on this course. In some places, the roads are not perfect, as they are right here. $123,000 was spent repaving parts of the course. This is one place where the road is perfect. But I think right now the favorites are congratulating themselves getting through that grassy stretch without going down. In 45, Chris Pryor has nothing to lose. He's from Ohio. He qualified with a 2:17. The rest of the field says, go ahead, Chris, get on television. We don't take you seriously.
And that's exactly what he's doing right now. They're going under now. You can see the New Jersey Turnpike. They'll be heading into Jersey City, eventually headed back to the Manhattan skyline. Well, let's go now and take a look. What's going to happen in this 26-mile course? Let's go to Jack Whitaker.
The course for the United States Olympic Marathon Trial winds its way through 7 cities along the New Jersey waterfront. The first 5 miles.
Looking at Pryor, who still has the lead, that's not expected to stand for any length of time. About a 50-yard lead at this particular stage. They've just gone under the New Jersey Turnpike. They'll be heading into Jersey City. And as Marty LaQuarrie just mentioned, they've really worked hard to try to get this running surface in Jersey City up to the kind of competition they'd like to have. Now, this is such an interesting course. So we're going to go back once again now and kind of capture for you through the ears and eyes of Jack Whitaker.
The course for the United States Olympic Marathon Trial winds its way through 7 cities along the New Jersey waterfront. The first 5 miles are almost completely flat. The race starts and finishes at Liberty State Park within full view of New York City. It winds through the streets of Jersey City to Dickinson High School at mile 5, built on the site of an outpost from the War of 1812. This is the first climb on the course, and most of the next 10 miles will be uphill. In those 10 miles, the runners will pass through Hoboken, a settlement of yuppies whose most famous son is Frank Sinatra. In neighboring Weehawken, a baseball field sits on top of the New Jersey entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel. The runners will pass right by this on their way to West New York. This is one of the most densely populated cities in the country. It is also the most difficult part of the course, with about 2 miles of non-stop winding hills. From the 15th mile mark to the end of the race, the course is almost all downhill, and this is where the racing should really begin. One straight 5-mile stretch down Bergen Line Avenue leads to Union City, which boasts the second largest Cuban population in the country after Miami. The course then retraces itself until the runners return to Liberty State Park, run down this path directly toward Manhattan and perhaps a place on the U.S. Olympic team.
After about 1 mile now of this marathon, Pryor still in the lead. But Marty, the guy to watch, you can see him in the back leading that pack. That is Pat Peterson. He is the New York's favorite son. He's run the New York City Marathon so often and, of course, very familiar with this course.
That's Pat, number 10. He's the only man in the field who slept in his own bed last night, drove in from Long Island. The rest of the athletes have been here 2-3 days in this highly charged atmosphere, and he's trying to work his way to the front. They are running directly into a 17 or more mile-per-hour wind. As you can see, his hair raking back over his head. He's paying a price, but the cards are kind of on the table with Pat Peterson. He's been around for a while, and people know he's got to win the race from the front.
So right Pryor looking back, I'm sorry, Marty, Pryor looking back at that pack. Peterson, the man who's expected to go out. There were some people wondering whether he'd go out quite so quickly because of the nature of this course. So many hills in the first 15 miles. But we'll be back to pick up the race. They've gone through 1 mile. The man to watch right now on the inside is Peterson.
Got a guy here wants to sell us a desktop publishing system?
We already have one.
Well, he says his is easy to learn.
Not easier than ours.
Claims that he can rig it to all our computers.
We didn't have to rig ours.
Says his makes great documents, fast.
You mean like ours?
He says his system makes sense for business. Not for ours.
Personal publishing on the IBM Personal System 2.
Bob Hendon doesn't know it, but something else is about to interrupt his trip. Pain. As Bob's gotten older, he gets more aches and pains. That's why his next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of body pain or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain. Chevy S10 invites you to own the street with the biggest engine ever offered in a compact pickup. The most V6 power and torque available in a compact truck. And a price to make your heart beat faster than ever.
The heartbeat of America. That's today's Chevy truck.
great. But we wanted a Bud Light.
Bud Light!
If you want the great taste of Bud Light, ask for it.
Now go get pizza.
Bud Light. Because everything else is just a light.
Next, the U.S. men's gymnastics team faces their toughest test before the Olympics. They meet the most powerful team in the world, the USSR. Next on ABC Sports.
They covered the first mile in 5:19, and I guess, Marty, due to the fact they had to start out on the grass, I would assume that would be a little bit slow because of that.
Considering that and the wind and the fact that everybody is eyeballing each other, I think Peterson would like for someone else to take up the running, and it's kind of like a card game where you have 5 rounds. They're only in the first round, and Pat's waiting now to see if someone else would share the work. And of course, he's been accommodated in a sense by Chris Pryor, who's gone out to push the pace, but he's not taken seriously as a contender. He's run 3 marathons, none of them better than 2:16, so the field is content to let him go out there and set the pace.
Well, he has his moment right now on national television. The rest of them now trying to pull up in a hurry. We had a field of Peterson there for a moment leading. We also had Freilich, Janicki, and Gompers who were coming up strong. But thus far, they're content to lay back a little bit.
Right now, John Glidewell has tried to move out also, but the main men are still in the pack. Number 32, Bob Hodge, Paul Gompers, number 7. Peterson has moved back into the shelter of the other runners, gotten out of the wind. John Janicki we see up there. Mark Kerp off to the right, man who's run some great half-marathon distance. We'll be looking for him to make his breakthrough, so to speak, in the marathon today.
So Pryor continuing to lead. You can see maybe the pack starting to come up. You mentioned Glidewell. They're in Jersey City right now, and they'll have a most spectacular view coming a little bit when they make a turn and head back to the Manhattan skyline. But you can see the running surface very level here. Very good shape as they start this race.
Well, the first 5 miles is not the testing part of the course. There are some sharp turns, there are some bad footing, but it's mostly level. And so no one's at a real disadvantage, no real hard work. No men are going to break psychologically in the first 5 miles. In fact, it won't be until 10 to 15 where they hit the really tough hills that we'll probably see mass groups of people falling off the back end of the pack. Look at that huge pack right now.
It's like the ravenous dogs coming up behind Pryor. Interestingly enough, Marty, in a situation like this, you're kind of measuring each other. You're trying to pick up some body language, try to decide if in fact somebody is going to run this well or if in fact their style will stay the same later in the race. These are things you kind of put in your memory bank.
One thing that they're really trying to find out right now is how fast are they going and how strong is the wind. In other words, they went past the mile in 5:19, and then you ask yourself, did that feel like a 5:19 mile? Can I pick it up another 20 seconds, which gets me into the 2:12 range, which will probably be what it takes to make the team. So they're trying to guess, after only a mile, if they're having a good day or not, and that's the first psychological battle that you have.
Now John
pulling up.
is coming right up abreast, and he will take the lead for the first time, it appears. Pryor now, and he visiting. That's always been interesting to me as they shake hands. How much talking you do on the course?
Well, not too much at this pace. They just ran the second mile in 4:38. It's kind of hard to talk at that pace, and we'd have to wonder if that was prearranged. The 2 men working together now to just take it out. There's so much speculation that in a big race like this, some men tend to freeze and don't follow their race plan. And as we saw in 1984, when Pete Fitzinger went out like this and they let him go, he never really came back.
Well, you could lose your game plan. Let's check now those leaders. Larry Rawson is on the course. Larry, can you hear us?
Gary, I can. The dreams that these athletes brought to this event that Jack Whitaker chronicled at the top of the show are beginning to clash with reality. Behind me, you can see the athletes begin to spread eagle. Marty talked about the wind out here today. The first mile I had in 5:08. They passed, the pack did, 2 miles in 10:01. They're running 4:53 pace. That's right on about a 2:08, 2:09 marathon pace. The wind right now, as we were cutting in at this angle, we are going on a north-south direction, let me add. The wind is coming from the west. I don't think it's going to be a major factor in this race if it holds up. And you can see that right now there is very little wind up until the time we turned right by the financial center over my shoulder. We are now going back into a 17 to 22 mile per hour wind. The pace, again, running about 2:09, and you see many of the top people that Marty has talked about over my shoulder. There is one little hill coming up here at the 3 mile mark. Other than that, as Marty and Jack have mentioned, it's a very flat first 5 miles. Gentlemen?
Okay, Larry, thank you. We'll come back to you again as we will check the lead. Right now, they're headed into the Jersey City area. We'll be back to check their progress in just a moment.
In 1895, Dave Lennox invented the modern home furnace and changed forever the face of America's comfort. 93 years later, Lennox still leads the way. We've grown some, and we keep homes cool now as well as warm. But there's still a little bit of Dave in every Lennox employee. A stubborn, old-fashioned commitment to value, workmanship, quality you can depend on.
Attaboy, Dave.
Lennox Heating and Air Conditioning. Quality proven over time.
When NutraSweet first appeared, it created something of a sensation. It made mothers smile and children laugh. And most of all, NutraSweet let people enjoy life just a little more. Because in its own simple way, it made the things it's in taste better than anyone ever imagined. NutraSweet. Why so many things taste so good.
If you're not a little nervous, then you're not alive. Just 'cause something's hard to do doesn't mean that I won't try. So if you wanna stay cool, soft and dry. Come on, soft and dry. So if you wanna stay cool.
Now, soft and dry white oval solid. It works better than the leading solids.
Listen to the heartbeat
Chevrolet Corsica LT.
of America.
Now you can enjoy sleeker aerodynamics in a Porsche 928S, a taut F41 sport suspension, electronic fuel injection, all for a price that lets you indulge yourself without denying your responsibilities.
The heartbeat of America.
Corsica LT.
That's today's Chevrolet.
Welcome back to our coverage of the Olympic Marathon Trials. We're at the 3-mile mark. We're going to kind of go back in this pack a little bit now and catch some progress. And to do that, here is Catherine Switzer.
Hi, Gary. Listen, I'm in the back of the front of the first pack. The third place is so crucially important in this race. We all know that. Almost all of the runners here that I've talked to said they're going to go and try to win this race. But third place is what's important to making that Olympic team. Fourth place is the heartbreaker. Now, if you look at the side of this pack, you'll see some really experienced racers. There's Greg Meyer right there, Eddie Eyestone right over there on the right. It's a very strong wind they're running into, and a top racer can use the strength of the leaders in the front of the pack so that they can come through. A marathon in particular can develop from the back of a lead pack like this. So expect some of these shrewder, more experienced racers to come up there using the strength of the front runners and come through, possibly for a lead or maybe more importantly for a place. Back to you guys.
Catherine, thank you very much. It was still Pryor and Glidewell who were leading this, and interestingly enough, both have a background of coming from Ohio, so they know each other very well.
Well, we've seen a history of this in Olympic trials races where there have been big surprises. A marathoner doesn't run very many races, and I said in the opening, many of these men haven't run a serious effort in 6 months or a year. This kind of reminds me back in 1972, Frank Shorter and Jack Batchelor, Jeff Galloway went up into the mountains in Colorado and trained for 3 months and came down to the trials and just shook up the marathoning world, making the team. I don't think we're seeing that again here. I think you have two friends from Ohio who know each other, know that the pack is being cautious right now and says, what the heck, let's get out there.
Well, you saw the splits just a moment ago. As we mentioned, it's been 5 years since an American marathoner has gone inside 2 hours and 10 minutes. That projected out to 2:10:39. That's surprising when you figure the first 15 miles are uphill, basically. Then the last part of it, about 95% of it is in a downhill grade.
That's right. If they can get to the halfway point on this course in 1:05, they could come back in 1:03 or 1:04, because the last 10 miles of the course, 95% of it is downhill. This may be developing to the race to the top of the highest hill and then see who can hold on.
That's about a 30-yard lead now for Pryor and Glidewell over the rest of the pack. Now, they're going to be coming to their first uphill on the course. And we will then see how these two guys fare. A lot of people feel, Marty, this is a strength runners type of course.
Well, it certainly is for a number of reasons. One, when you have uneven footing, you've got to pump your arms more to keep your balance. Secondly, when you're heading into the wind, you have to be strong. You have to continue to pump your arms, which takes a lot of upper body strength. And then the fact that there are hills, large hills on this course, does help the strong runners. And you've got to have strong thighs, because even though 90% of the last 10 miles is downhill, your thighs take a beating when you're running downhill. The downhills make you run faster than you normally would with your natural stride on flat, even ground. So you have to be very strong.
Now, Dave Gordon, here's a guy who, I guess when you look back on him, it's been a kind of a disappointing time. I think sentimentally a lot of people would like to see him come through very well out of Eugene, Oregon. He finished 4th in the trials in '84. It's kind of a curse, he said, but it's motivated him to do well today. For good reason, he wants to do well today, and Jack Whitaker has a complete story.
9 seconds is not a long time for most people, but to Dave Gordon, 9 seconds begat 4 years of waiting. Gordon barely missed making the 1984 United States Olympic team when he finished 4th, just 9 seconds behind John Tuttle. But after the race, it was discovered that Tuttle had injured himself and probably would not compete. Gordon began to train, and he assumed he'd be running in the Olympics, but his joy was short-lived. 2 weeks before the games, Tuttle announced he had recovered, and Gordon's Olympic dream had dissolved.
Ever since that day, there's been one mission in my running, and I've sort of been living the so-called Olympic dream for the last 4 years, trying to do everything right so that this time I can ensure myself of a 3rd or better.
Dave's desire and determination to make the Olympic team can be seen in his workouts. He runs twice a day, averaging 120 miles per week through the Willamette Valley in Eugene, Oregon. He lists his occupation as athlete, but clearly training is more than just a job.
Training for the marathon really is a lifestyle. It's not something you do as a sideline. It's every waking minute and day, hour. It's your life, your diet, and your daily routine.
Dave's life also includes his wife, Lynn, and his 2 children, Erin and Michael. He considers them all partners in his Olympic dream. What's unusual about this relationship is that Lynn is the one that goes to work in the morning, and Dave is the one who stays home with the kids.
It's not so much my nickname. All my friends call me Mr. Mom for staying home and taking care of the diapers and the feeding routine. But, you know, I wouldn't trade the last 4 years of my life for anything. I think it's brought me closer to my daughter. She's a real daddy's little girl, and we really we're rare, and we're a family that just really enjoys being together.
Dave has won only 1 marathon in his career, and that was his first in Honolulu 6 years ago. His best performance since then was last year in Boston when he finished 4th. Dave realizes that this race is a turning point in his life. If he doesn't do well and make the Olympic team, he'll have to retire.
I have no plans as far as racing, as far as running, past April 24th. It's everything to me. This race is, it is my life. I've dedicated my whole life, really, to this one race. And it's kind of scary, but that's the pressure of it. You got to come through on that day.
So Dave Gordon, who feels he's in the best shape of his career and very tactically now staying back there. This was anticipated from Dave Gordon, the 28-year-old from Eugene, Oregon, right in the midst of all of that. And up ahead, we have a man coming into the picture, Steve Spence, number 83. He has joined Glidewell as the 2 of them now ahead of that group of runners who are trying to stay in contact with them. We'll be back as they're approaching that hill around Dickinson High School. It'll be a tough, tough challenge.
Just how orange does a Diet Minute Maid orange taste? Tourist. Diet Minute Maid orange with 100% NutraSweet. The orange.
Who would you say makes the best personal computers for business? The brand being added by the most major corporations? The one rated highest in performance by computer experts? The one that won the most industry awards? Or the one that's grown the fastest? Hard call, right? Not really. In each case, the answer is Compact. It simply works better.
Listen to the heartbeat of America.
Now there's a powerful new reason to follow your heart. The new 4.3-liter V6 available in S10 Blazer. 28% more power than before and 50% more torque. The new 4.3-liter V6, the biggest engine ever offered in Blazer's class.
The heartbeat of America.
Chevy S10 Blazer.
That's today's Chevy truck.
Carol Burnett's sister.
I'm Christine Burnett. Am I funny? No. Does my investment firm, Dean Witter, still treat me like a star? Uh-huh.
You're somebody, a Dean Witter.
A member of the Sears Financial Network.
To fathers about the Kodak Color Watch system.
The family is counting on old Dad to get great film developing. Look for the Kodak Color Watch seal, so your photos will look wonderful, and your son will let you borrow the car. Kodak Color Watch for great developing. You're going to thank me for it.
Today on ABC Sports, a whitewater adventure lies ahead. Join a group of American women on an odyssey through the steamy jungles of Indonesia. They encounter a race of bygone warriors in Headhunter's Legacy. Witness first-time footage of these natives exposing their headhunting past on Mutual of Omaha's Spirit of Adventure today.
We continue our live coverage of the United States Olympic trials, the New Jersey Waterfront. John Glidewell, who he and his wife just had a baby boy 2 days ago and maybe euphorically running right now on top of everybody else. And we now have a change probably in that leadership as like Mark Kerp, number 8 now, all of a sudden has taken the lead from Glidewell. To update us a little further, let's look out. Well, he just stopped for a water break. I thought he had a problem there for a moment. Let's go down now to Larry Rawson to update what's going on. Larry?
Gary, we've just passed the 5-mile mark. The time, 25 minutes and 13 seconds as we hit a real knot of people here. We're trying to get free of the runners. We haven't been in their way yet here. The runners at 3 miles, there were 44 people, all within about 15 yards of each other. By the 4-mile mark, it was down to 35 people. In the beginning now, as we pass 5 miles, to spread eagle a bit more. Most of the cream that Marty documented at the top of the show is up in the lead group with Peterson, and that is Mark Kerp leading. Glidewell's a 2:17 marathoner. Most of the athletes up front right now have run 2:12, 2:13. We are heading on a pace that 75 years ago would have bested the world best for 10,000 meters, 6.2 miles, and that was done in 30 minutes, 58 seconds. These runners will pass that mark at about that same time and still have 20 miles to go. Gary?
Thank you, Larry. Pat Peterson now with the lead, the 6-foot, 146-pounder, who's been a staple to the New York City Marathon. He's finished in the top 5 3 times. Glidewell was there alongside for a while. Glidewell's been hurt a lot about the last 14 months. And then Kerp. And Kerp, of course, is the guy that, if he stays close, look out at the finish.
Well, Kerp's run great half marathons, and people thought when he moved up to the marathon, he could become America's best. He's run 3 of them. He's gotten better as they came along. The interesting thing to me is number 17, Jeff Scuffins, who ran his first marathon just a few months ago, the Marine Corps Marathon, and won his first marathon. You know, talking to Bill Rogers a few days ago after the Boston Marathon, I said, don't you see that somebody could come out in these trials that we don't know and by the Olympics be another Frank Shorter? And he said, no, I don't think so. But there's a candidate for it. Jeff Scuffins ran 2:15 in his first marathon, and now he's up with the lead pack. Kerp and Peterson, of course, 2 men we expected to be out there at the front of the pack as they hit this first hill.
Well, we said this at the top of this broadcast, there's no clear-cut favorite, and we were just doing that to create some interest. It is hard to get a handle on this. Everyone you would talk to, all the experts would come up with 3 or 4 different names as to who they thought would win this. Right now, there's Peterson. If you look at him, Marty, it looks like mechanically he's doing everything wrong when you watch Peterson run, but he gets the job done.
He gets the job done, and I believe it or not, I think his form was a little worse a few years ago. One thing the marathon does for you, it naturally makes you become somewhat more efficient. But the important thing is that Pat doesn't bounce up and down. He bounces side to side. If you bounce up and down, you're putting more beating on your thighs and your legs. His movement is mostly side to side. He's learned to live with it. And the men behind him, Paul Gompers now has moved up to 4th, looking quite relaxed. And that pack there looking more like a bicycle race because as Larry's kept us up to date, as they turn these corners, one moment the wind's at their back, the next minute it's at their side, and the next minute they're running into it. So that pack changes depending on whether they're running into the wind or with the wind.
You can see they're still continuing to climb. That began at about the 4.5-mile mark around Dickinson High School. It will continue to do that off and on until they reach the 15-mile mark. And looking at the splits, well, they've dropped back a little bit on that projected time earlier was about 2:10:38.
Interesting, so far they've been running just about 5-minute mile pace, but we haven't seen Pete Fitzinger, who won the trials in '84, or Bill Donikowski, who 1 year ago was thought to be the top American marathoner. There's Donikowski now, lost contact with the lead pack. He has been rumored to be injured over the last year coming into the race. In fact, just yesterday he told us he thought the injuries were behind him. He wasn't expecting any problem. He's run on this course 2 times and may just be thinking that the lead pack is going out too fast. You can see Donikowski just at the top of the picture. They're spread out, and he's not totally out of it at this point, but Donikowski's the kind of runner that you expect to keep his nose in it and stay with that lead pack.
But it's still Peterson. Peterson probably knows this course better than any other runner. You mentioned that he slept in his own bed last night, but he has that inside knowledge. He's exactly where he wants to be.
Right with him. Another surprise of sorts. Number 26, just over Pat's shoulder, Don Norman from Pennsylvania. Don is a fine runner. He's been around for quite a while. He now weighs 147 pounds. That's interesting because 1 year ago, he weighed 160 pounds. In January, he stopped drinking beer, and last October, he closed his sporting goods store to totally devote himself to this day, October 24th, and he looks marvelous right now, as does Jeff Scuppins, 2 men who really are in nobody's form charts as favorites coming into the race. Paul Gompers, number 7, has been rumored to be running up to 160 miles a week with some regularity. He's been on everybody's mind. You see him, number 7, his arms seemingly flailing a little bit too much to my liking for a marathoner, but his credentials coming in give him ample opportunity to consider himself one of the favorites.
So let's set it for you now. That's Peterson, number 10. Mentioned Don Norman, number 26. He is out of the University of West Virginia. Republic, Pennsylvania. He's had the iron problem, or as you mentioned, he's had the weight problem before. Gompers, number 7. Gompers running alongside Peterson. And Peterson will continue to stay out there. He does not have the great kick. He would like to get some distance between himself and the rest of the pack and then hope they can't reel him in. In fact, be able to hang on and do that. There are so many good 10K runners in this race, and you would figure that when they get to that downhill grade at about the 15-mile mark, that's when they want to make their move.
Well, this race could take a couple of ways of being run. One might be a race to the 15 or 16 mile point, which is the highest point on the course, and whoever gets up there first can float down the downhill stretch and hang on to win. But what we've seen in the past, this Waterfront Marathon has been run for 3 years. In many cases, runners feel with 17, 18 miles that they're feeling good. They come down the downhill at 22 miles by Dickinson High School, and all of a sudden their legs go out from under them, and it's been a struggle to the finish for a lot of them. Bill Donikowski won here 2 years ago, but last year, while running well at 15 miles, he said by 22 he was just feeling out of it. So some of the favorites, Marty Freilich, who has experience on this course, they're not up in the front there. They might be taking a wait-and-see attitude.
Well, they're going to have a very critical point of the race coming up. It's a viaduct that empties into Hoboken. We'll be back to kind of document you on that in just a moment.
For 1,000 years, this mystical Asian city was surrounded by a wall to keep out foreigners. Today, the wall is gone, and the world is welcome to Seoul and the 1988 Summer Olympics. But if you go, bring plenty of time and your Visa card, because the Olympics don't take place every year. And this year, the Olympics don't take American Express. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
When it comes to doing business with foreign lands, you gotta know how to balance your trade. You gotta know the time. You gotta know your zones. You gotta know how to speak the language. You gotta bring things in from far away. You gotta know their destinations. Your customers are waiting at the end of the line. Now is no time for complications. This reminder from Federal Express that it's not just a package. It's your business.
While other airlines have prohibited smoking on flights under 2 hours, only Northwest has eliminated smoking on all flights throughout North America.
Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Northwest, Northwest, Northwest.
Americans buy lots of imported cars. Isn't it nice to know that Napa has the parts right here when you need them? Don't miss the boat on parts for imports. Come to Napa.
Which personal computer is right for your small business? Which runs the programs small businesses are using today? Word processing, spreadsheets, and runs them fast with superb graphics.
No hurry.
And will grow with your business and work with your other PCs.
Got it.
Simply today's fastest selling computer.
No problem.
The IBM Personal System 2 family.
After you.
At your IBM authorized dealer.
Gary Bender along with Marty LaQuarrie. We've just passed the 7-mile mark. They're headed downhill now in the viaduct area, which leads into Hoboken. And it's a very difficult area, not from the standpoint necessarily it's downhill, but it's a very rough terrain. Earlier now, showing you how Peterson knows this course so well, he took somewhat of a shortcut. We've got it on tape. And I thought it was so interesting. Marty, you looked at it and said, wait a minute, can he do that?
Well, as they made a sharp right turn to come down the viaduct, he jumped up over the curb and ran on the sidewalk, saved him a few yards. Now he's back down. This is the narrowest part of the course, and also the part of the course where it would be easiest to move into the lead. And right now, Ron Tabb has taken the bait. Never one to use discretion. Tabb's led numerous races, some of them never to finish, one or two to run a fast time, but he's throwing caution to the wind, and I think the rest of the field believes that he doesn't have the goods to back up this move that he's made as they head through Hoboken. They're on a flat stretch here, but it was easy to take the lead on that downhill portion. They went through 10 kilometers, 6.2 miles, in 31 minutes, 18 seconds. They're on a fast mile now, but they are running fast enough to break the course record.
And again, as you said, they picked up some of that speed coming down the viaduct, an old 100-year structure now in Hoboken. Tabb, as you mentioned, has not finished some races. In fact, in '84, he did not finish the Olympic trials. He said, I'm trying to redeem myself. He said, I wouldn't be wasting my time if I didn't think I could make the team. He, of course, is Mary Slaney's first husband. He's 5'6", 116-pounder out of San Diego, 33 years of age. And so they make the turn now. This will be an interesting part of Hoboken. There's so much history here. As they come across the viaduct down Washington, they'll turn in Newark and then eventually end up on Frank Sinatra Drive as they head back to the south. Well, Catherine Switzer is following Fitzinger, who, of course, won the trials in '84. Catherine, how's he doing?
Gary, you're right. If there's ever a smart racer in this race, it's Pete Fitzinger, number 2, wearing the gray. Pete has, as you know, came from behind in the '84 trials to win that race. Not as an unknown, but certainly as not as a favorite. Today, he's done the same thing. He stayed back off that lead pack. He was way back with the others, and he's still out of the lead because he is just keeping out of their way. He's a very, very smart racer. I've been with Pete and his wife in New Zealand, and Pete is used to the wind and used to the hills. He's going to stay out of everybody's way, let them break a little of that wind, and watch him move up. Also, behind Pete, I don't know if you can see him, but Dave Gordon went out of the back of that first pack. Pete passed him about a mile ago, so Gordon looks like he's not going to have his dreams come true today. But watch out for this man. He's gonna come through. I think he can place.
Fitzinger out of Cornell. the surprise winner of the '84 trials. And interestingly enough, he has a reputation, probably as much as anybody in the marathon running, as a smart runner. And I think it's so interesting how he's gained that reputation. He's very wily, and as Catherine mentioned, a smart runner. And it seems like the rest of the field kind of looks around at Fitzinger to see what he's doing, to see if they're doing the right thing.
Well, he pulled off one of the big surprises in American marathon history in '84, and since that time, he was the top American finisher in the '84 Olympics. All the focus was on Alberto Salazar, but he was 11th. So they know he just doesn't run bad races. He doesn't run a lot of marathons, but he doesn't run bad races. Interestingly, Pat Peterson does not appear to be having a good day, and that will change the complex of this race. I believe that many of the runners felt that Peterson would control the pace. They were waiting for him to control the pace, and now it hasn't happened, and the leader's mantle has been given to many different people. This is Jim Klein, number 35 from Scottsdale, Arizona, qualifying time of 2:16, someone you'd never would have imagined would be leading the race at this point.
Well, he has his place in the sun right now. Let's go to Larry Rossin, who's right behind Jim Klein.
Gary, we're right now passing 8 miles, 39 minutes and 55 seconds. They're running right on a 2-hour, 11-minute pace. This over the most difficult part of the course. The wind is whipping at a crosswind here. Part of it in the last 2 miles has been at the runner's face. That downhill phase was run that mile at about 4 minutes and 39 seconds unofficially. Whenever you viewers at home get a chance to watch this race, note when the runners are running abreast of each other. That's an indication that the wind is not a factor. If you see the athletes go pretty much in single file or run in twos, it's the same principle as Indianapolis. You burn more fuel if you're behind, let somebody in front push the air aside. That's what's going on behind us and will until we head on the southerly track of this course downhill. Then I think you'll see people fan out. Right now there's about 15 people behind us, and the last 3 miles we've dropped about 14 people from this lead group, and a lot of the tactics and surging is going on right now, principles Marty can talk about. Gentlemen?
Well, Hoboken, the home of Frank Sinatra, and right now our leader number 35, Jim Klein. We'll return with more of the U.S. Olympic trials after a word from our local stations.
Listen to the heartbeat. Listen to the heartbeat of America. Oh, yeah.
Moving into more car doesn't have to be expensive or boring. Today's Chevrolet Celebrity. It's for people who've grown up without growing old.
The heartbeat of America. Chevrolet. That's today's Chevrolet.
Oh, the magic's gone. The minute the lights go out, you fall asleep.
It's time to change your bulb to Philips. Philips Longer Life Square bulbs last 33% longer than ordinary round bulbs.
Tuesday, the special 2-hour preview of China Beach.
I'd always been looking for a foreign car just because they look real sporty and I like the image that it portrays.
I wanted to get a car which I felt safe in, which I could fit in, and would be a good value for my money.
It's my car.
It's our Nova.
With the yen rising and the cost of imports going through the roof, Chevrolet thought it was time someone did something nice for import car owners. And we couldn't think of anyone better qualified than us.
Hollywood bombshell Jane Mansfield and The Girl Can't Help It tonight at midnight.
The U.S. Olympic Trials Men's Marathon. This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by AT&T, the right choice. By Federal Express, who reminds you that it's not just a package, it's your business. And by Bud Light, everything else is just a light. Jim Klein continues on the lead of the marathon, and we are joined by one of the greats in marathon racing history in the early 80s, the premier marathon racer in the world, Alberto Salazar, who is, of course, out of competition for several years due to injuries. And Alberto, your appraisal of this race thus far?
Well, it's starting to turn into the very competitive dogfight that we thought it would. Seems there's 10 to 15 runners all left there, which all have a real good shot at finishing in the top 3. And at this point, soon they're going to be starting to hit the downhill part of the course. And I think at that point, we're going to see runners really making an active move to try and secure one of those top 3 spots.
It's hilly, it's up and down. That has already been characterized by Gary Binder and Marty LaCourre. It's also very windy. How would that favor? What kind of a racer would that favor?
Well, I think that all of them at this point are very hesitant to make a move or to be up in front because of the windy nature of the course, the fact that there really isn't a lot of protection out there. But all the runners that I spoke to before the race all seem to think that there would be a pack there until 15 miles, and then at 15 miles they expected that somebody would start trying to make a move, and I think that's still going to happen. I think that up to now, this sort of course is going to favor those runners which have a very good finish, those runners with perhaps more track speed than others. And I think at this point, with Ed Eyestone being up there with the leaders, I think that he's becoming more and more a legitimate contender.
There's Jim Klein still on the lead. Alberto, a lot of people who follow racing casually, marathon racing, think that maybe you have retired, you no longer will be around. You're 29 years old, and we remember Carlos Lopez, who won the gold in Los Angeles. He was 37 years old. I know you've had the injuries, the knee, you've had the Achilles, but what are your plans now?
Well, right now, I'm taking a year break from active competition. I'm still training, I'm still running lightly, and I still believe that I can make a comeback. I've had assorted injuries, all different ones, and I think it's been more a situation of trying to come back too quickly from surgeries, which I had 3 years ago. And the surgeries themselves were successful, but I never gave myself enough of a break. I wanted to be back running a month later, and I just never got off on the right foot, had the Olympics coming up, and was pushing so hard for that I made some hasty decisions. At this point now, I decided that however long it takes, I'm going to make a very slow, gradual return to running again. And I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be able to run well again. I'm young, I'm only 29, just hitting my peak years, so as long as I play it smart, I shouldn't have any problems.
Just quickly, you've been training at 5,000, 10,000. Any chance of seeing you at Indianapolis later on?
I don't think this summer. I think that would be a mistake for me to try and come back too quick again. I've decided to just make this year a slow rest year, and after that to really start trying to build up again. And I'm hoping to be racing again about a year or so from now.
Would you like to be out there?
Sure. You know, it's being here, I wish I was out there, but at the same time, I know I really wasn't ready this year.
Thank you, Alberto. Alberto Salazar, one of the greats, the premier marathoner in the early 80s. Now we're going back to Gary Binder.
Unofficial time, 46:47. And we just now have approached mile 9, and there's the 25-year-old from Scottsdale, Arizona, Jim Klein. You can see also he's going on an up climb now. As it starts to pick up, it will continue to climb as they are on Frank Sinatra Drive, heading back up. Eventually will crest at about the 15-mile mark. Then they'll go down the straightaway, Bergen Line, and for about 95% of that race, they will have a downhill grade. Well, with marathons in Rotterdam, London, Boston, and here, this has been the busiest marathon week of the year. As the Seoul Olympics draw closer, we have a better idea who the favorites will be. Jack Whitaker files this report.
Last week in the Rotterdam Marathon, Belavni Disamo of Ethiopia set a new world's best time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 49 seconds. But don't look for him in Seoul. Ethiopia is boycotting. So who are the top international favorites? From the Far East, last year's Boston Marathon winner, Toshihiko Seiko of Japan. The 1987 World Championship bronze medalist from Italy, Giulino Bordin. Irishman John Tracy finished third in last week's Boston Marathon, despite being a late entrant. And, of course, there are a host of great African runners, including defending world champion Douglas Wakahura of Kenya, silver medalist Ahmed Salah of Djibouti, and the two men who raced to the closest finish in Boston Marathon history last Monday. Juma Ikonga of Tanzania, who finished second, and a Kenyan who just might have established himself as the favorite in Seoul, Ibrahim Hussein, the first African to win a Boston Marathon. The path to the top of the marathoning world can be a rocky one. And on the few occasions Ibrahim has to consider all he has accomplished in the past few years, he doesn't look out over the Serengeti plain of his native land, but the high desert of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he's lived for the past 8 years. A 1984 graduate of the University of New Mexico, Ibrahim was a middle and long-distance runner. Hoped to join the Kenyan team in Los Angeles as a steeplechase runner. But a mix-up in the dates of the Kenyan Olympic trials caused him to arrive home too late to compete.
Olympics comes once in after 4 years. You never know what will happen after 4 years. So, after missing that first Olympics, it discouraged me a lot. And I think it gave me something to gauge in 1988.
To that point, he had never run a marathon. After getting married and returning to Albuquerque, his friend and sometimes training partner, Chuck Aragon, an American Olympic hopeful, convinced him to enter a local marathon. With minimal training, Ibrahim won.
So I figured maybe this is my race. I trained for only 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and I'm doing this good. I think if I train, I might do good in this distance.
Might do good proved to be an understatement. Ibrahim has now run in 8 marathons, won 6 of those, including the last 3 Honolulu marathons. His only losses have been on the streets of New York, where he finished 9th in 85, 4th in 86. Then last year, he passed Pat Peterson at the halfway mark and was never challenged on his way to victory. But his moment of glory was lost in controversy when near the finish, the ABC camera zoomed right past him to a disabled runner who had started some time before. In the confusion, the national audience never saw Ibrahim cross the finish line.
It's not for me to complain, it's for the people who are watching. I'm a runner, and everybody knows that I win. So I think, there's mistakes everywhere. So I don't think it was intentional. But at the same time, I don't want to say that for ABC. It's ABC themselves who know it. But for me, I'm very satisfied winning New York. And I don't want anything negative to block that.
Ibrahim will now return to Albuquerque and his family, wife Zai and son Hussein. He's putting off graduate studies to concentrate on Seoul. Someday he plans to return to Kenya. Until then, he'll take advantage of the altitude of New Mexico and enjoy the warmth of a people and a place that he considers a second home.
I think the best thing which happened to me was coming to New Mexico. I think if I would have gone to somewhere else, I wouldn't be the runner I am right now. I've grown up as a world-class athlete in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I think it has a lot to do with the people. They take me like somebody from New Mexico. I think when I go to Olympics and win the gold medal, I won't be winning it for my country alone. I think I'll be winning it for Albuquerque and New Mexico.
The pace has started to pick up. In the last mile, they picked it up by 30 seconds. You see Peterson, number 10. Also, Scuffins is in there, Gompers. There is Peterson, who had lost the lead over the viaduct. Now let's go to Larry Rossi.
Gary, we're down to about 21 runners here as we head into the hills. Peterson bolted from back into this big pack to right up by the lead. They began to eat up Klein very quickly. Now Don Norman and Peterson are running 1 and 2. Peterson off to the side. I think this is going to be the fastest marathon run by an American in the last 5 years. They're running very, very fast out here in windy conditions through the difficult phase of this course. I'm struck also with the fact that there's been very smart running going on. We've chronicled what's happened to Fitzinger back in the pack, but you notice we're not saying anything about Eyestone, Meyer, and a couple of the other favorites that are up there. The reason being they've tucked back in and let other people break the wind. Those people in the middle of the pack that we're not talking about are still to be heard from. To show you how good the pace out here is right now, if you go back to the first marathon ever run and have those guys in this race right now, when the winner of this race crosses the finish line, the winner of the first Olympic marathon would still have 8 miles left to cover.
So Don Norman, 29 years of age, with the lead. In the 84 trials, he dropped out at the 12-mile mark. Right now, with the lead. We'll be back to pick up our coverage at the New Jersey Waterfront.
Just how orange does a Minute Maid orange taste?
Pardon me.
Minute Maid orange. It's the orange.
Most Olympic athletes are born with a skill, but that's not enough to get them to the 1988 Games. They also need money. So now, if you contribute $25 to the U.S. Olympic team, Hertz will send you $100 worth of rental discount certificates. To contribute, call 1-800-USA-GIVE. After all, a lifetime of training shouldn't go to waste. Give all you can to the U.S. Olympic team. The athletes already have.
Michelle Miller suffers from frequent sinus headaches.
The pain is all in here. It's a constant ache and pressure. You can feel like your eyes want to just burst.
For powerful relief, Tylenol sinus medication. It's stronger than sinus headaches because it's got maximum strength pain and pressure relievers.
There is no pressure in my eyes. There is no pain. I mean, everything's great.
Maximum strength Tylenol sinus medication. It's stronger than sinus headaches and it won't make you drowsy.
Hey, that was a great answer. Where'd you learn about computers?
In the Army.
You were in the Army?
Yeah.
And now they're helping pay your way through college.
How come you know so much?
How do you think I got here?
Qualify for the GI Bill and the Army College Fund and earn $17,000 for college for only a 2-year enlistment or $25,200 for a 4-year enlistment.
What you doing here?
Airborne.
You were airborne?
Find your future in the Army.
You used to jump out of airplanes?
We have a report that Bill Donikowski, who holds the Waterfront course record set in 1986, has dropped out at the 10-mile mark because of a foot problem. We'll update that in just a moment. But right now, running very effectively in the lead is Don Norman. Also up there is Bob Hodge, number 32, and Steve Spence, 83. So, Marty, right now the form isn't holding.
Well, you know, people sometimes look at the kid next door who's running 20 miles a day and they say, he's not one of the best 100 in the country. Why is he training for the Olympics? Bill Donikowski, who just dropped out in this month's issue of, last month's issue of Runner magazine, was picked by the expert to be the #1 man to make the team. So that's how things can change in a year and change in this marathon game. We're seeing men leading who no one gave any votes just 2 months ago.
Now, if you're wondering where we are, we're coming close to the 11-mile mark. You see the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel. This is Weehawken in that particular area. You can see the baseball field immediately above that. And now it really starts to get tough. This is where one of the big challenges start to come into play. As they start uphill, this will continue. As they'll have to shift gears, they'll have to reach within themselves as they continue to get to the very top, which will be at about the 15-mile mark.
I think there are a lot of veterans in that pack waiting to see what kind of shape they get to the 15-mile mark in after they've climbed the hills. These hills are extremely tough psychologically, not only because they're steep, but they're winding hills, and you can't really see the top of the hill when you start it. So if you're not familiar with the course, it's very hard to judge. So the strong runners should come to the fore here and start to establish themselves near the front of the pack. This is where they are right now, Weehawken there. They just passed the entrance to the tunnel. And when they get on that straight stretch, that's the downhill stretch. But until then, it will be cat and mouse, looking side to side, see how the hills, which really separate the men from the boys, are affecting the other runners. Ed Eyestone is in that pack there. And if he's made it this far, I've got to believe he's going to have a chance in the run-in, as Paul Gompers, number 7, is the leader up this hill.
Well, Gomper just trains like a maniac. He's been known to put in 178 miles a week. That's about 60 to 70 miles more than the average marathoner. He is number 7. Paul Gompers, 24 years of old, a Harvard graduate, now attending Oxford. In fact, he said he has to get back to Oxford by the morning of April 25th, or he's going to be, I guess, ruled tardy as he goes back to Oxford University to complete his studies there. He has a degree in biology at Harvard. His goal is to be a millionaire by the age of 35, as he's taken 6 weeks vacation time from Oxford. And here he comes right now with the lead. That's number 7, Paul Gompers, out of Fairview Heights, Illinois.
Right now, as you can see on number 83's head, his hair blowing. They're running into the wind. Steve Spence, number 83, as they are dealing with both hills and wind right now. We see no sign, again, of Pat Peterson, who appears to be having a psychological battle with himself. He's up to the front, and then he's back. He was actually responsible for pulling that lead pack back up to catch decline earlier, but now he appears to be back out of it. Dunikowski, one of the other favorites, out of it, and Pete Fitzinger is back there with Greg Meyer and some of the other men with a lot of experience.
See number 9 back there? That is Don Janicki. He's starting to move up a little bit. Number 70, by the way, is Mark Conover. There's another unknown that's running right alongside Gompers at the particular time. So we've had this all day long. It's been interesting, hasn't it? The different people who have decided to take over the lead at particular stages of this marathon.
Well, Larry's real good at this. Look at number 83, Steve Spence, looking around. He just looks like he's out for a jog. And when you look that way, right here from 10 to 15 miles, the toughest part of the course, he has got to be ready for a big surprise. So I think Larry can really read the runners down there. Larry?
I'm a good 150 yards behind the lead pack. You're looking at Pat Peterson. And just as I was saying, he made his move and bolted up to the front. He held that position for another maybe quarter of a mile and just as quickly started to fall back. I don't know whether it was cramps. I didn't try and correspond with him or ask him a yes-no question, but he just started to struggle badly. He looks like he's trying to pick up his cadence a bit, and he looks a little more comfortable than he was. It might have been a temporary phenomenon, but the lead group right now is down to just 11 men. Gary?
Well, Larry, that's not his strategy, though. He wants to be out there early because of the fact he doesn't have a great kick, and now he's got to play catch-up. I thought it was interesting, Marty. You thought psychologically when he made that move on the viaduct, something happened. It looked like a shrewd move, but in fact, it may have taken him out of his rhythm.
Well, he jumped up the curb twice, and on a cold day with the wind blowing, if you're tight, if you've got a tightness in your groin, just stepping up and down that curb, he may have pulled something. He could have pulled a calf muscle. He just hasn't been the same since he jumped up on the curb around that corner at the viaduct.
Does he have enough to come back and overhaul this group, reel it in and be in the picture?
No, if his parents are watching and wondering, he's not going to make it today.
Remember now, 3 positions available on the U.S. Olympic team to go to Seoul. Of course, the prize money, $50,000 for first, $25,000 for second, and $20,000 for third. Even fourth place has $15,000, and you would, of course, be the alternate on the Olympic team if you finish in fourth. So Peterson, a real story right now, has dropped back. Earlier we had Ron Tabb, who had the lead for a while. He then dropped back, and right now you can continue to see number 83. That is Steve Spence, also Stone, 102. Don Norman has run very well, number 26, and none of these guys did we talk a lot about prior to this race.
No, a lot of surprises. And in green, number 32, Bob Hodge, a real wily veteran, a marathoner, a clear marathoner, is up there leading right now. Mark Kerp, who has been spoken of as the next great miler. I said that earlier, but he's been disappointing in some of his marathon attempts. It appears now that he has definitely made the transition to the marathon, and he's going to be in this one right up to the end. Mark Kerp of Missouri up there.
Marty, they say he's been on the verge of really breaking through. He's only attempted 3 marathons, completing 2. He's a top-ranked road racer in the world, and Kerp, with that good speed, you would figure is in excellent position. And there's the backdrop. What a beautiful backdrop as they come into West New York, looking across the Hudson River as the trials continue here in the New Jersey waterfront.
Introducing an automobile that will change the way you think about two-seaters. Riata by Buick, the premium American two-seater you can be comfortable with. Riata offers a high level of luxury, sophisticated conveniences, and a remarkable amount of room at a most attractive price. If your aim in life has always been high, drive the premium American two-seater. Riata by Buick. Go ahead, you deserve it.
I'm here having a couple of Miller Lights with the world's funniest tennis coach, Jan Tiriak. This guy's a million laughs. Hey, remember the one you told me about the chicken and the tennis ball? That just cracked me up. Here, have another Miller Lite. Yeah, light tastes great and it's less filling. And you don't want to get filled up when you're having as good a time as we are. Right, Jan?
For serious beer drinkers, there's only one light beer, Miller Lite.
Oh, stop it, man. You're killing me.
When NutraSweet first appeared, it created something of a sensation. It made mothers smile and children laugh. And most of all, NutraSweet let people enjoy life just a little more. Because in its own simple way, it made the things it's in taste better than anyone ever imagined. NutraSweet. Why so many things taste so good. Your neighborhood Napa Auto Parts store has more than 125,000 parts for the typical American car. Whatever that is.
New Tegrin medicated shampoo with conditioners leaves my hair looking great, and it's tough on dandruff.
And how do you know what tough is?
New Tegrin medicated shampoo with conditioners proves tough can be beautiful.
Saturday, amateur boxing giants collide when the U.S. battles powerful Cuba, plus the Kentucky Derby trial, all live on ABC's Wide World of Sports.
This view of West New York as we're in about the 12.5, 13-mile area. And there's our leader, Robert Hodge, who's a women's track and cross-country coach at Lowell University out of Clinton, Massachusetts, a 32-year-old. Fitzinger now has started to make a move. Very smart runner. Now in the number 2 spot, and look at Kerp. We had a report earlier on Donikowski to update it. Let's go to Catherine Switzer.
Gary, I got some sad news here. Bill Donikowski, number 1 seed in the race, and the course record holder is out of the Olympic trials. Bill, can you talk to us for a moment and tell us what the problem is? I'm sorry, Bill, they can't hear you in the studio, so let me just tell you what the problem is. According to Bill, the Achilles tendon that he's been having so much trouble with all year went at the 10-mile point. He couldn't rotate the foot, and he can't walk at this point, and he's in the ambulance, as you can see. So, unfortunately for the United States and for Bill Donikowski, out of the Olympic trials.
Boy, that is tough. The aerospace engineer for the Space Scientist Laboratories, 31 years of age, out of the University of Michigan, a 5-time All-American for the Wolverines. He was kind of a mystery man, considered many to be the odds-on favorite, but hadn't run a marathon in a year because of some of those injuries.
Well, the last 2 years haven't been wasted. Watching Bill Donikowski's career the last 2 years, I think a lot of other American marathoners took heart in the way that he kept a full-time job and still managed to work his way up to America's best. And many of the men in this race today probably wouldn't have devoted the time if they hadn't seen the success of Bill Donikowski, who held the full-time job and worked his way to the top.
They continue to work their way up, and you can see Peterson, as we had that shot a moment ago, how far he's back. He may be, 200 yards behind the lead runners at this particular stage. Did he have a stitch? What was the problem with him? Can he catch up? Boy, there's a lot of things that's got to be going through the mind of Peterson. Look at him lean into the hill and into the wind.
He's out on his own now. It would be almost
there,
impossible for him to work his way back to the pack on his own. As you see him fighting the wind in one of the tougher hills, he got a stitch. And it's just been a bad day for him all round. There's still a large pack in front of him. So this is one of the points, though, of the Olympic trials with the prize money. Up to 20th place gets prize money, so he's going to gut it out. His mind is programmed to run as hard as he can today, and just because the rest of the world can run faster, he's not going to give up.
And so Peterson struggling now, obviously, as he comes up that hill. Looked like for a moment he almost stumbled as he tried to lean into the hill, lean into the wind. And they're in the West New York area. They'll be going into Guttenberg, eventually getting up to the 15-mile area. And that's probably, they don't even notice that skyline. They're so intent on running. And now you see Gopper's number 7. And this is the guy who has been up there from time to time, who has the lead at this particular stage. Also up there with him,
Greg Meyer has moved on the right-hand side, dark shorts. You see Greg Meyer, who has moved into the lead pack. Mark Kerp also in there. And Bobby Hodge. It's a day for the old guard. Bob Hodge ran a 2:10:59 marathon in 1980. His second best time, 2:11:52, was run in 1982.
A lot of people talked about number 20, Greg Meyer. He, along with Donikowski, were teammates at the University of Michigan. Of course, he won the Boston Marathon in '83, and it's been a struggle uphill since that time, but they feel that Meyer came in here in great shape, very smart in his kind of course. As you take a look now, as they wind up the hill, continuing to run, they will continue up to the turnaround part of the course, when they then will get the chance to come downhill about 95% of the time. And you've got to think right now, Marty, that's going through the mind. I've got to continue to finish strong uphill, and then maybe I can put it all together as we make the turn.
One guy that could put it together is 32-year-old Greg Meyer. He won the Boston Marathon, and he has one of the fastest lifetime bests in the race, and one of the reasons he won Boston is he's good at running downhill. Over the last 10 miles of the course, 90% of it is downhill, as Greg Meyer, number 20, really sticks his nose right into the lead. Ed Eyestone right over his shoulder.
Well, with the lead pack, let's go back to Larry Rawson.
Gary, the half was passed in 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 21 seconds. Now that the pack is down to about 8 runners, a lot of tactics will begin to be employed. The athletes will start listening for each other's breathing. They'll monitor the arm action of these runners, many of whom they know so well. And they'll also begin to see if somebody veers off to grab water quickly if they have an opportunity. They are looking now for signs of weakness. Surging tactics where they pick up the pace for 150 yards and see who will go with them will begin to be employed after they get through these next couple of miles. Gompers has chosen to fight the wind the whole way. I don't know whether he's going to pay the price back end, but that's a dangerous, risky, I think, posture, and he's showing the confidence up there. Meyer is the experienced marathoner. Eddie Eyestone, certainly, Marty can talk about Kerp running comfortably. Bob Hodge, a bit of a surprise, a former 2:10 marathoner. But from this lead group, I should also note that Don Norman is lurking no more than 50 yards behind, and directly behind him, about 7 steps away, Pete Fitzinger, who's never out of it when he's this close.
And so a new face, Greg Meyer, right now up among the leaders. We'll return with more of the U.S. Olympic trials after a word from our local stations.
Working late again, huh, Tim?
Yeah, I'm just finishing up that PC proposal.
Oh, yeah. You going with IBM?
No, I'm going with AT&T.
AT&T?
Yeah.
Why did you bother asking my advice if you're going to go with AT&T?
They match the specs better.
Better than who?
IBM, Compaq, you name it.
Wait a minute. What are you talking about?
Flexibility.
My machines give me more flexibility than I'll ever need.
Can your vendor give all your users simultaneous access to the same program? That's what I'm getting with these AT&T machines. I can hang 32 terminals off just one PC. You're still blowing your budget on standalones.
You sound like a commercial.
I'm giving you the facts. Why don't you try listening for a change?
A child torn from her foster family.
I love this child.
Given to a father who abused her. Tess Hopper, based on a true story, Little Girl Lost, tomorrow.
A lot of muffler shops are promising low prices. But you can take this to the bank. Nobody beats Midas. She went bargain hunting, and the hunt ended here. She found out about the Economizer Plus. It's guaranteed for as long as you own your car. It's installed by experts, and it costs just $30. Midas has been #1 for over 30 years, and will be #1 for another 30. Nobody beats Midas. Nobody.
It's a sleek-looking car. I like the lines of it.
Listen to the heartbeat.
I mean, I consider it the Nova of the 80s. I think it's a sharp-looking car, and it's upscale. I really like it.
Listen to the heartbeat.
I would definitely recommend the car. It's a great car. If you're looking for a car that will give you a great value for your money, and you're very picky about what you buy, I would buy the Nova.
The heartbeat of America.
But it's classy, it's sleek.
That's today's Chevrolet.
Great value for the money.
Journey into Egypt, Wednesday at 7:30 on Channel 5.
Frank Gifford once again from a very good position here. As you can see over my shoulder, that's Midtown Manhattan. And while the marathon continues on with Paul Gompers on the lead at the moment, the lead changing constantly, we will tell you the draft is being held right over my shoulder at the Marriott Marquis. Let's go down the top 10 draft picks. There they are. Atlanta, Andre Bruce, linebacker from Auburn. They signed him earlier. Kansas City had traded up with Detroit. They picked defensive end Neil Smith as expected. Detroit picked Benny Blades, a great defensive back out of the University of Miami. Tampa Bay, offensive tackle Paul Gruber of Wisconsin. A lot of people wanted him. Cincinnati, Ricky Dixon, a cornerback from Oklahoma. The Raiders picked Tim Brown, the Heisman wide receiver out of Notre Dame. Green Bay went for Sterling Sharp, a terrific wide receiver out of the University of South Carolina. The Jets picked an offensive tackle, Dave Cadigan, out of USC. The Raiders, with a Ram draft pick from Houston, picked Terry McDaniel, a fine cornerback. They're getting a little old on the corner out there. Terry McDaniel from Tennessee. He had off-season shoulder surgery, but they usually know what they're doing. And the Giants 10th round draft pick, they went for an offensive tackle, Eric Moore. Well, in addition to today's marathon, ABC Sports will be bringing you 22 hours of coverage this summer of the U.S. Olympic trials. Included in our coverage will be some features on some of the lesser-known sports, such as synchronized swimming. And for a report on the synchronized swimming trials, here's Donna De Verona.
Only one person in the history of the Olympics has won 2 gold medals in synchronized swimming. In 1984, Tracy Ruiz introduced us to this new Olympic sport, capturing a gold medal with duet partner Candy Costi and another as a soloist. And then she abruptly quit.
I got married a year after the Olympics, and my husband sort of sensed that I did miss the competition, so he said one day, why don't you just try to go for it again?
In 1987, going for it again meant a return to the old routine of pumping iron, dance classes, and a renewed focus. And challenging Kristen Babb, a 19-year-old emerging star who 2 years in a row won the International Moscow Invitational, defeating Tracy just this past February.
Moscow was the turning point, I think, for my swimming career. I think that was my time to just finally come out of my shell and really get some recognition and, you know, get to the point where I felt like I could do as well as everybody expected me to.
The question here is, can Kristen Babb hold off Tracy in her comeback effort? Hello, I'm Donna De Verona in Indianapolis for the Olympic trials in synchronized swimming. The stage has been set for dramatic competition, perhaps made more intense by the fact that unlike other sports on the Olympic calendar, which allow 2 or 3 competitors per event, synchronized swimming is limited to 1 entry in the solo and duet competition. So perhaps this is the toughest team to make. First to enter the water, Kristen Babb exhibited the competency style of a competitor seasoned under pressure. Her routine scored a respectable 98.24 and was a clear challenge. Tracy Ruiz Conforto responded with the performance of her life. More creative and stronger than ever, she went beyond even her own expectations, receiving a perfect score for artistic impression, or 99.52. Tracy, not only did you make a comeback, but you did it in style with the 10s. Was there a time out there when you thought, in the beginning when you started the comeback, that you thought, gee, my mind works, my body's not responding?
Definitely, that's exactly how I felt. But just having this performance tonight really makes me feel like it was all worth it. And, you know, I've just been doing a lot of hard work, and I'm just ready to go for it in Seoul.
Joining Tracy on the United States Olympic team will be the duet entry of Sarah and Karen Josephson.
The Olympic trials for synchronized swimming were held this weekend, and throughout the spring and summer, we'll be keeping you abreast of all the trials. Right now, back to Gary Bender.
Bob Hodge out of Clinton, Massachusetts is his 22nd marathon. He did not come to New Jersey until yesterday. In 80, he posted a personal best of 2:10:59. He ran that in Oregon. 5'8½", 32 years of age, and now they're coming to mile 15, which of course, Marty, is the turnaround point.
And Bob Hodge has been trying with all his strength to break this race open on the uphills. He knows that he's probably not as fast on the run-in, on the downhill running coming in, and he is trying to get away from the pack. They are not letting him. They're all working together back there, and they will probably reel him in as they make the turnaround and start to run on the downhill. Bobby, for just the slightest moment, distracted and did not cut the tangent as well as the rest of the crew. And
is that just a lack of concentration, Marty, or what?
Lack of concentration. Believe me, he's hurting right now. As you said, 22 marathons. He knows himself. He knows what he has to do to break the rest of the field, and he really worked up the hills. But there are some people in the back of that pack that took every punch he threw quite well.
Well, they'll come to the very top. James Braddock Park is in this vicinity. At the center of the park, they'll pass a flag which marks the highest point along the course, and then Almost like a breath of fresh air. They'll get a chance to turn around and head downhill.
Maybe Larry can be of some help here, because as they get to the top of the hill, some of them will start to look a little ragged. Then for the next 4 or 5 miles on the downhill section, they'll be able to gather themselves and start to look a little better in their form. But at the top of this hill, we'll get a clue to what they really have deep inside and what we might see again over the last 3 miles. Can Larry tell us, Mark Kerp seemed to be struggling up the hill just a few yards ago, but now he's going after Bobby Hodge. Who appears to have come through this hilly section the best, Larry?
Marty, I'm directly in front of the runners right now. Hodge, you're exactly right. Bob Hodge from Massachusetts tried to put on a surge, but the runners have eaten him up. And what's going on right now, I think Kerp looks very fresh. He was looking around a little while ago. But later in the race, for you viewers at home, watch and see how many of them start staring directly at the ground. It's a sign of their intent focus to try and cope with the strain of the race. Early on, when you're fresh, you tend to look around. Steve Spence looks very good as an outside dark horse. He's wearing number 83 in the runners, and Eddie Eyestone has run a brilliant race, I think. He sat back, let everybody else break the wind. He's running very comfortably, and now the odds begin to favor the guys who the runners. So I think this is an amazingly large pack as we begin to approach just 10 miles to go in this race, all of which we've documented will be virtually downhill. Tom Hunt looks good, number 12. He's run very well, has very good speed. So I think the strain now falls on the shoulders of Peter Fitzinger, Paul Gompers, number 7, and possibly Don Norman, who is not known as a man having great speed. Greg Meyer, who's in that pack, is a 3:59 former miler. He did that about 5 years ago, but he has excellent speed. So, gentlemen, the real race is just about to begin.
Looks like Kerp had a little trouble there. He ran into somebody. One guy you didn't mention there is Ed Eyestone. He made a name for himself in the 10K. He's the best in the field at that distance, and so if it gets down to the 6.2-mile mark, look out for him. But Kerp, as you mentioned, in excellent position. Gompers also up there. Hodge starting to go back. We talked to Mark Kerp about how he would approach this race, what his strategy would be.
Well, I try to approach any race I go into definitely to win and to run as well as I can and never really settle before the race starts for second or third. I think when you do that, in many cases, you'll set yourself up to be 4th or 5th. So I definitely think the best way to approach a race is to go in it to win.
His personal best, Mark Kerp's, is 2:11:45 in the marathon. He was 3rd in the Twin Cities last October. This is only his 3rd marathon, but he's in good shape. And also, as you look at Meyer, number 20, still hanging in there tight. Eyestone out of BYU. You got to wonder if he doesn't feel good about himself.
And right now, you mentioned Greg Meyer is a 4-minute miler. Also, Tom Hunt, who is just behind Greg Meyer in the blue shorts. He's 30 years old, but back in high school, he ran a 3:59, a 4:02 mile in high school. He's run 3:57 for the mile. Interestingly enough, he ran his best marathon, a 2:12, on this course just 2 years ago, and in that race, he was leading and was caught from behind by Bill Donikowski. So obviously, he's thought about it for quite a long time and has decided that you don't take the lead on this course until the 20-mile mark at least. So Tom Hunt is biding his time.
Well, it's interesting. Donikowski passed him with 1.5 miles to go, and Donikowski, of course, out of the race right now. We'll be back after 16 miles here at the New Jersey Waterfront.
Presenting the winning performance, the winning look, the winning ways of Buick's great American coupe, the new Buick Regal. Introducing the totally new Regal Grand Sport with a powerful fuel-injected V6 engine, world-class aerodynamics, each wheel independently suspended to grip the curves, and the stopping power of a disc brake at each wheel. The Regal Grand Sport, the newest member of a very Regal family.
The great American road belongs to Buick.
Round of lights here?
The one light that outshines them all, ask for Bud Light.
Let me know when you're ready for another round.
Because everything else is just a light. When it comes to doing business overseas, you gotta know how to get it over there. You gotta span the globe.
You gotta put spin on the ball. You gotta know foreign relations most of all. You gotta know the customs. You can't afford to be stopped at the border. You gotta make things happen when you get your customer's order. This reminder from Federal Express that it's not just a package. It's your business.
Hello? Need a shipping date? Yeah, oh, hold on a second. Hello? You want research? Yo, price change?
The IBM Personal System 2
Research, yeah. All trends are up.
runs today's most popular business program
Shipping. Be out in 10 days.
with superior graphics and speed.
The price on that? The price is $89.99.
No wonder it's today's fastest selling computer. The Personal System 2 family, part of the bigger picture from IBM.
The field has made the turn. They have come down Bergen Line, and this is the downhill portion. 95% of the remaining part of this distance will be downhill. They will hit some hills. And Marty, we touched on this earlier. You can get lulled into maybe making a move too soon.
Well, this is Ed Eyestone right now, and he has made a big move. They are going to be running straight ahead for 5 miles, protected by the wind, and he is going to take this opportunity to carve out a lead and then try and hang on, I'm sure, in the last 3 miles. This is it. The real racing has started. We talked about Jeff Scuffins. We could talk about Mark Conover, a lot of the fellows that were up there, but they don't have the credentials on the track that Ed Eyestone has, and his move now is serious. This will drastically affect the race for the rest of the time. There's Pat Peterson, who has dropped out of the race, had been having a miserable time for over 5 miles now, just trying to work through it. And the man who probably 25% of the people watching the race in person here today in New Jersey were rooting for has dropped out of the race.
So
really,
he and Donikowski, 2 of our favorites, are not even in the field now.
I would say of the real favorites left now, only Pete Fitzinger is still in there. We haven't seen Dave Gordon up there. We see Greg Meyer moving into
We're going to go back, Marty, and capture on tape when Peterson decided he just couldn't go any longer. This is just moments ago. Peterson, who knows this course so well, and something inside of him says, that's it. It's happened to the great ones. And right now, Peterson has come out of the race, as has Donikowski, and you're looking at number 102, Ed Eyestone, out of Orem, Utah. He's a Brigham Young University graduate. He was the 85 NCAA champion of the 5K and the 10K. He has the fastest 10K time of anybody in the field. I guess after that, it'll probably be Greg Meyer. So if you're thinking about a kick to the finish, this guy looks like he might be in pretty good shape.
Well, right now he's got the wind at his back. It's slightly downhill. He's got the best leg speed of anyone in the race, and he's saying, what's so hard about this marathon thing? But I have to remind you that Tom Hunt was the leader here 2 years ago and then was caught after they went down the big downhill at 22 miles. Last year, Jerry Kiernan caught Bill Donikowski right about here. This is a very deceiving place. The wind's at your back. Downhill, you start to feel good, and you go with it. Ed has not run this course before, but there's no question that he has the credentials to hold this and make the team from here on in, as Mark Kerp also starts to get into the fight here.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about body language. It was so interesting to see Eyestone look around casually as though he's running easily. Here comes Gompers now, number 7, coming up along with Kerp. You've got guys who can kick it very well. They've just passed the 17-mile mark. Now, an interesting thing happens in this race when they get down to the end of it. It goes into an area, Marty, where there will not be a lot of people to encourage them on along the sides. In fact, it'll be very sparsely populated until they make that turn into the grassy area of Liberty State Park. So psychologically, you wonder what happens also to the last 2 or 3 miles as they've now passed the 17-mile mark. We had Eyestone along with Gompers and Kerp at the lead right now.
They just ran that last mile in 4:53. I believe that's the first mile under 5 minutes since the second mile. Most of the time they've been running between 5 minutes and 5:05, and now they've started downhill and they've run a 4:53.
They will eventually retrace their steps when they get to about the 19.5-mile mark. But right now, this is still new territory. Bergen line headed back in as they made the turn at the 15-mile mark. There's Kirk, Gompers, Eyestone, and Spence still continues to stay up there along with Conover. Conover, by the way, went to Humboldt State. So Spence and Conover, I would bet you any amount of money, would not figure to be in the leaderboard at the start of this race. No one would have picked them at this particular point.
Well, there's no question about it, but in having hindsight, Steve Spence did win the Jacksonville River Run this year, and he drove from Pennsylvania the night before, jumped in the race, and won it. So if he was able to do that, you don't know what he's got in store for us today. Bobby Hyde closing in the back in the green in the back of the pack makes it a 7-man race right now. And really, Pete Fitzinger just off the back, still in the race.
Well, he's so smart. You never know what he'll keep for reserve. We understand now officially they have run 3 miles under 5 minutes. So as we had them at about the 14-mile mark, they were very close to Donikowski's course record, which was set in '86. And of course, with that downhill portion, you'd figure they would pick up on it. Now, as you look at the time now projected is 2:13:17.
Well, their average pace per mile has been 5:05. We probably will not see any miles from here on in that are over 5 minutes.
The course record is 2:11:40 again, set by Bill Donikowski. They've run the New Jersey Waterfront only 3 times as far as this marathon is concerned, is picked this time as the Olympic trial site due to the fact there's been so many outstanding American marathoners. They felt it was a tribute to this area working very hard to prepare themselves for the event, and the weather certainly has come around. Yesterday it was raining, it was windy. It's windy today, but so much better than we anticipated as Mark Conover, number 70 out of Humboldt State now, starting to get a little distance between himself and the other 4 runners. And let's see if they can reel him in. A long ways to go yet. A lot of people felt when they got to about 60th Street and Bergen line, that's when the move would really be made. That's when they start to put their ears back and really go, if you have anything left. So this Olympic trial still very, very much up for grabs. 3 positions on the Olympic team, and right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 men vying for those spots.
Being 7'2" has its disadvantages. Like I've got the biggest stomach on the team. When I get hungry, you can hear my stomach growling in the next area code. And when that happens, I pick up some Campbell's Chunky.
Nothing takes care of a mean appetite like the hearty chunks of beef and garden vegetables in Campbell's Chunky Beef Soup.
I look for 2 things in the kitchen: chunky and high ceilings.
Campbell's Chunky, it takes care of the meanest appetites.
Introducing an automobile born for the great American road. Riata by Buick. A premium American 2-seater, Riata offers the exhilaration of a sports car and the luxury of a Buick at a most attractive price. If your destination in life has always been the top, go ahead. You deserve it.
The great American road belongs to Buick.
Us rap musicians like to think the best light beer is the one we drink. And every rapping cat I know drinks Miller Lite. Ain't that so? Tastes great. Let's fill it. Tastes great. Let's fill it. Lights got body. Lights got soul. Don't stop me now. I'm on a roll. Get it right. There's only one light beer, Miller Lite.
If you're ever near the Plaza Mayor in Madrid, walk in any direction, and you'll find hundreds of wonderful things to buy, from hand-tooled leathers to tasty tapas to the most fragrant flowers in Spain. But to buy them, occasionally you'll need cash. So bring your Visa card, because Madrid has over 1,000 places to get cash with Visa, but only one with just American Express. Visa Cash, it's everywhere you want to be.
Next, the U.S. men's gymnastics team faces their toughest test before the Olympics. They meet the most powerful team in the world, the USSR. Next on ABC Sports.
We continue our U.S. Olympic men's marathon trials. Conover from Humboldt State, 27 years of age, two-time the NCAA Division I cross-country champion, as well as a two-time Division II cross-country champion. But a surprise, this 27-year-old, as he continues to have the lead and continues with body language to indicate that right now he's kind of in a groove, feels very good.
Well, you mentioned body language. A lot of that is becoming very important. We saw Ed Eyestone bolt out to about a 30-yard lead, and I think the reason he did that was to see who could come with him. And then we saw Mark Kerr pull up on his shoulder. So Eyestone dropped back in the pack, saying to himself, okay, I know Kerp has it, and I know how Kerp runs, and I think Eyestone will probably say to himself, I know that I can out-kick Kerp in the last half mile if I have to. And then we saw Mark Conover go out there, and Eddie Eyestone said, I'm not too sure about this guy, how he runs. Let me get on his shoulder and feel him out. But I think what Ed Eyestone has accomplished for us and for him by taking that lead is that Jeff Scuffins back there, we see with the blue shorts, and Bob Hodge in the green don't really feel good enough to respond to every little move. They're just hanging on at this point. They may gather themselves, they may come out of the big downhill at 22 miles a little better, but right now he realizes that both Mark Kerp and Mark Conover right there are Ed Eyestone's main competition.
We're about 1 minute away from the 19-mile mark. Now, Eyestone, we talked about his 10K ability. He's never really posted a fast time in the marathon. His best time is 2:16:21, and that was 4 years ago. But the slow pace, maybe earlier, helped him a little bit. Then it picked up. He stayed with him all the way, and he feels he can be very effective down the stretch, and said prior to this race that he thought he had a good marathon in him. We'll find out.
Well, he said he ran so poorly in last year's Boston Marathon that he swore revenge on this event.
10-time All-American at BYU. He has a master's degree at BYU in exercise physiology. He has not run this course before. He was born in America Samoa, and his wife, Lynn, is a former Miss Utah. They're expecting their first child on May 22nd. So Conover and Eyestone right now, they're starting to put some distance between themselves and the rest of them.
They have opened it up, and Ed Eyestone also will be trying to qualify for the 5,000 and 10,000 meters later on in the track trials. As we get a look back at third and fourth place, Paul Gompers, who has had his nose at the front of the pack ever since the gun went off, really, and Mark Kerp. Gompers, the Harvard student who's rumored to have done 160 miles a week, and Mark Kerp, who has run one of the fastest half marathon times, now moving up to the marathon distance, and they are both question marks, I think, in everybody's mind.
You can see they've hit that uphill portion we were talking about on Bergen Line. Now, the thing to remember, we have to remind you again, it's third place is also very, very important. 1, 2, 3 will be awarded positions on the U.S. Olympic team, and of course the prize money, 50, 25, 20, and then fourth place, an alternate position as well as 15,000.
That's right.
And so Eyestone and Conover running shoulder to shoulder. Behind them comes Gompers along with Kerp. And you wonder, where is Fitzinger? You wonder if anybody else can overhaul these guys and still be a factor as they're at the 19-mile mark.
Well, I think that last shot showed us that maybe Kerp and Gompers were coming back on the leaders. Is Larry Ralston able to give us some perspective on that? Larry, are you in position? I see you back there with Mark Kerp. Are they closing?
Marty, I am. They're closing a little bit. Kerp is now trying to make a move, and obviously Gompers must stay with Kerp, not only to try and make the team, but he lacks the finishing kick of Mark Kerp, who's a sensational 9-mile runner on the roads or shorter distance. To answer your question about Fitzinger, he is approximately 100 yards behind the leaders, still in contention. He has been having stitch problems. I've been driving beside him and watching him grab his side. He is right now closing in on the runners who are 5th and 6th, Bob Hodge and Steve Spence, who is at Shippensburg State as a graduate student. It looks like Gompers right now is having trouble, and our 3 athletes who may wind up on our team are beginning to emerge as we approach the 20-mile mark. The last 6 miles of this race is the favorite sport of the Marquis de Sade.
Well, Kerp looks very strong. It was interesting, Marty, when he took that water break, he seemed to just kind of pick up something. On the other hand, Gompers dropped back and now is behind him. We understand Kerp is about 6 seconds behind the 2 leaders, Conover and Eyestone.
Well, there's no question that even as Larry was speaking, that Paul Gompers was either broken physically and maybe mentally. Now he just physically couldn't go with Kerp on that move. But is he broken mentally, or will he be able to continue to push himself to the point where maybe he hits a stretch of good running? It comes and goes in these marathons, and as Larry said, right now Pete Fitzinger is having that mental and physical battle to try and get into it. There's 83, Jeff Scuffins. And I'd like to go to Larry again. Larry, do you think they sense some dead meat in front of them there?
They
83,
do.
Jeff Scuffins seems to really be able to, Steve Spence, number 83, seems to really be coming after Gompers.
Spence, you're exactly right, has been running along with, I think sometimes as you've been documenting, the good 10K runners, the athletes who run 9 and 10 miles well, are running well here today. Steve Spence had been running very well at shorter distances, only a 2:17 marathoner, but look how well he's running. He is beginning to close in slightly on Mark Kerb for the 3rd place. There's no doubt in my mind he's made a move to go after him. And don't count out Fitzinger yet. If he can ever get over these cramps or problems he's having in his side, he's certainly in striking contention.
Well, it was interesting, Larry, while you were talking, we were watching also Eyestone looking and talking as he was going along that time with Conover. They both seem to be very relaxed. There now is Eyestone, number 102. But they actually motioned back, pointed to somebody as they were running, which indicates to me again that both of them are very comfortable right now, if you can be comfortable when you approach the 20-mile mark.
Gary, sometimes two runners will form an alliance to try and break the rest of the field. And in many ways, I think that's what Eyestone did when he pulled up to Conover. They work in unison, and they draw energy off each other in almost a communion of spirit to get rid of everybody else.
You know, there's a lot of talk about the wall coming up at 20 miles. Larry, you and I have talked about that. I guess the elite runners, they don't have such a thing. For we laymen, I guess there is such a thing.
Well, some of them do, and Eyestone is one that some people feel has had problems after 20 miles. And Marty can comment on this, but that surprised me with why he moved as quickly as he did back in the hills. It was a very, very strong move he put on, but the last 6 miles, the body is not built to cover a marathon. The energy levels in our system are good for about 20 miles. After that, it gets to be a little bit of potluck.
Well, potluck? Well, we'll find out with a little over 6 miles to go in these trials. We'll be back with the finish. Who's going to go to Seoul? We'll find out, and we'll be back after this from our local stations.
Harry, if you don't want to end up in court, you better send a child support.
I'm calling about your son, Grover. You better send money. His ski trip's over.
Send the money now, you dig? Or we won't make our next gig.
To send someone money fast, come to Western Union. We'll make sure it gets to any of our 10,000 locations, usually in 15 minutes or less.
Cruising.
Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
Just how orange does a Diet Minute Maid orange taste? Tourist. Diet Minute Maid orange with 100% NutraSweet. The orange. Orange.
Look who's here.
Thank God.
Max is back on the attack in an all-new episode.
You can't be serious.
That's our Max.
It's that funny old world.
Thursday.
I was glad, said Thoreau in 1849, to have got out of the towns, to have left behind me for a season the bar rooms of Massachusetts in favor of Cape Cod.
The beauty of Cape Cod can be found just under one's feet, which Chuck Kramer proves as he wanders off the beaten path in Thoreau's footsteps on Chronicle. Monday night at 7:30.
Get yourself a piece of the Cadillac.
Introducing the rarest Cadillac of them all, the Commonwealth Edition. Special roof, special grille, special wheels, and very special savings. A Cadillac tradition that comes and goes just once a year. The Commonwealth Edition at your Commonwealth Cadillac dealers.
Get yourself a piece of the Cadillac.
News Center 5 reports the war on drugs Wednesday at 6.
They have passed the 20-mile mark. The last mile inside 5 minutes, 4:54. You see Conover along with Eyestone, our leaders. I'm Gary Bender along with Marty LaCoury, Catherine Switzer, and also Larry Rosson. Let's go to Larry right now. And so we'll get back to Larry in just a moment. But Eyestone, out of Brigham Young University, out of Humboldt State, is Mark Conover. Conover, really not a lot known about him. Eyestone was one of those guys who figured if he stayed close, could possibly pull it out. And you talked about an alliance while we're away between these two guys. It gets a little cagey at this particular stage.
Well, Gary, you mentioned sometimes two runners, and particularly in bicycle racing, cyclists will work together, runners will work together to pull away from the field. But this is kind of a setup because Ed Eyestone is the spider and Mark is the fly. Say, come on, I'll help you, we'll work together. No, Ed Eyestone, knowing full well he's 1 minute faster at 10,000 meters, and if it came down to the last mile or last half mile, it's definitely his race. But Conover, on the other hand, just probably beside himself at his good fortune to have come through the hills and be this far in the race with a chance to win it and make the team. Will go for any deal at this point, which will increase his chances.
Well, we have the 1-2 runners. We're going to try to give you a perspective here as we go back. This is Kerp. Kerp running to the third position. You can see Gompers appears to have dropped off even more. Now we understand it's Steve Spence who is in the fourth position. We also been told that Fitzinger had started to close a little bit and was maybe 3/4 of a mile back. So you never know where this guy might come from. He's such a smart runner. Fitzinger, of course, winning the trials in 1984. He waited to about the 13-mile mark to pull it out at that particular time.
Well, this is, of course, they're only at the 20-mile point, 6 tough downhill miles left. And Steve Spence was running very well at the Twin Cities Marathon last year at 18 miles and then really faded. So it's not entirely impossible that Steve Spence will run out of gas. As Larry alluded to, 20 miles has for many years been the magic mark for joggers and serious marathoners alike, where the body's energy stores start to go. And Steve Spence, number 83, who we're looking at in his last marathon at 20 miles, had big problems with Pete Fitzinger, who you've got to think if Fitzinger pulls up on his shoulder, he knows the man is here, I've got a major problem.
He seems to catch the attention of everybody. I don't know what happened to Gompers. Gompers was running in that number 3-4 position for a long time with Kerp. He now has dropped back to the 5th spot, and you saw Spence, who moved up. So these are the two principals right now, as we have less than 6 miles to go, as they'll be coming down into an area again that will not be heavily populated, as they will be retracing their steps and are at this particular point. When you get to about the 20-mile mark, you go back and duplicate the same territory that you did going out. And so they'll be making their move, coming back into Newark Avenue, head back into Jersey City, and eventually, of course, come out to Liberty State Park. We're about 30 seconds away from the 21-mile mark. And so, right now, running in the number 1 positions, Ed Eyestone, number 102, Mark Conover, number 70, and Fitzinger, we understand, is making a move. Let's check on it now. Here's Catherine Switzer.
I'm with Pete Fitzinger right here in 6th place. Pete's a very wily runner. He's only about 30 yards off the 5th place, and we can see Mark Kerp right up there in front. There's a long ways to go in this marathon. Don't forget, they always say that there are 2 races in a marathon, the first 20 miles and the second 6. Fitz knows that. He's ready for it. He's been having a little problems with some hamstrings. I've been seeing him rub the backs of his legs. Also a little side stitch due to the wind, but he knows this course and he knows the marathon. I have every confidence he's going to be pulling up there with all these people in sight.
If you remember the 84 trials, Alberto Salazar, remember, went by him and he came back and pushed through to beat him, the first American ever to beat Salazar, so he proved he has something left at the end.
Well, Pete's always been tough in the major races. Paul Gompers was just off his shoulder trying to hold on and draft on Pete Fitzinger, but here's the battle for first place. And this is really a great moment for Americans looking forward to Seoul, because Ed Eyestone has the kind of credentials that in another 5 months he could be a factor in Seoul. He's one of the best track men to run the marathon well now since Alberto Salazar did it.
That 21st mile was completed in 4:51, so they're running very effectively. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Presenting the winning performance, The winning look, the winning ways of Buick's great American coupe, the new Buick Regal, introducing the totally new Regal Grand Sport with a powerful fuel-injected V6 engine, world-class aerodynamics, each wheel independently suspended to grip the curves, and the stopping power of a disc brake at each wheel. The Regal Grand Sport, the newest member of a very Regal family.
The great American road belongs to Buick.
I'm gonna get away. I'm gonna go somewhere, relax, take it easy, you know?
Where do you want to go?
Bloomingdale's.
No matter where you want to go, just call us now for our new lower fares.
James Garner's brother.
I'm Jack Garner. I'm no movie star, but my investment firm, Dean Witter, still treats me like a leading man.
You're somebody, a Dean Witter.
A member of the Sears Financial Network.
Look for the Eric Clapton poster, available free at participating retailers.
When it comes to doing business worldwide, you gotta think in global proportions. You gotta know how the world turns, because you want it to turn your way. You gotta speak the language. You gotta travel with a fast crowd. It's a big world out there. You gotta do everything you can to make it smaller. This reminder from Federal Express that it's not just the package, it's your business.
Today on ABC Sports, a whitewater adventure lies ahead. Join a group of American women on an odyssey through the steamy jungles of Indonesia. They encounter a race of bygone warriors in Headhunter's Legacy. Witness first-time footage of these natives exposing their headhunting past on New Tour of Omaha's Spirit of Adventure today.
We have passed the 21-mile mark. They're headed downhill. They made the turn around Dickinson High School, and the real battle right now is between 4th and 5th. Paul Gompers and Pete Fitzinger. Gompers looked like he dropped off. Now he's come back.
Well, as I mentioned, when Mark Kurt pulled away from him physically, he just couldn't go with him. And psychologically, he managed to hang on. Then Fitzinger went by him also. He let Fitzinger go by for a while, and then he just came to life, and now he's having that battle with Fitzinger. Fitzinger's trying to hold on. Catherine Switzer's with them.
Catherine, can you hear us?
Paul Gompers passed Fitzinger, but it was just what Pete needed because he really created a good smooth motion for him. But right now, Gompers is throwing in several surges, and as you say, Pete is trying to go with him, but he's covering him very well, Marty. Doesn't seem to be any major problems. At this water station now, Pete's obviously going to try to come up alongside of him and make a move here. They are close to Mark Kerb. Really, it looks like 30 or 40 yards now. I think that this is going to be the race.
We could read a lot into the fact that Fitzinger did not take any water and Gompers went twice for the water.
You see 4th and 5th, Marty. Now we're going to show you the relationship to 3rd, which is Kerp at this particular time. There he is, number 8, Mark Kerp. And then we had about a 75-yard lead, Conover and Eystone ahead of Kerp. So they're starting to spread out a little bit as Gompers continues to beat Matt Fitzinger. You saw Dickinson High School in the background a moment ago, and they're really now going downhill, and they're homing in on that Liberty State Park area where the last half mile will be on grass.
Here's the last 3 miles, 4:52, a 4:53, and another 4:53. So they are starting to fly down that hill. And you've got to have patience to hold yourself back on the downhills. You can't just go after that guy who's 30 yards ahead of you, because if you let your body roll down the hills, you're going to pound and beat up your thighs. And then when you get on the flat with 3 miles to go, you're not going to have it. So control, self-control is the word right now.
They're at about a 2:12:24 pace. That would not be a course record, but of course coming downhill, they're going to pick some of that up. Right now, Eystone and Conover, they're in the lead. We'll be back.
Whoa! When Hyphenex Lawn Fertilizer challenged Scott's head-to-head, even the experts were surprised with the results. In independent tests around the country, Hyphenex couldn't be beat, not even by Scott's for thick green lawns. Switch to Hyphenex. You'll get a spectacular green lawn. That's guaranteed. And you get $4 back on every bag. Give your lawn the home field advantage.
Hyphenex lawn fertilizer is available at Kmart stores nationwide.
Which personal computer is right for your small business? Which runs the program small businesses are using today? Word processing, spreadsheets, and runs them fast with superb graphics.
No hurry.
And will grow with your business and work with your other PCs.
Got it.
Simply today's fastest selling computer.
No problem.
The IBM Personal System 2 family.
After you.
At your IBM authorized dealer.
Just how orange does a Minute Maid orange taste? Minute Maid orange. It's the orange.
We have passed the 22-mile mark. You see Gompers number 7. He is moving up on Kurp. This is a battle for third place. They are now about 24 seconds behind the leaders in Conover and Eyestone. But these two have been jockeying back and forth as you look at the leaders. A moment ago, Marty, looking at the body language, it looked like these two guys starting to suffer just a little bit. These two seemingly getting stronger.
Well, they're having a race, and if you've just joined us, number 7, Paul Gompers, has looked agonizing from step 1. He's not looking any different than he did at the beginning of the race. His form is very deceiving. And this is it, the battle for the team. Fitzinger's only 30 yards off the pace, and he's the man with the most experience. Gompers has run 2:10 for the marathon. Mark Kurp's attempts at the marathon have been somewhat disappointing, and Fitzinger just off the back there was our top finisher in Los Angeles, top American at New York 2 years ago, and the winner of the '84 trials. He's been quiet for 4 years, and he has suffered from the dilemma that all marathoners have. You can't run a lot of marathons, but if you don't run one for a year like Fitzinger did, they say, well, he's not done anything lately. He's been waiting for today.
Marty, you know, Gomper's really a relatively newcomer to the marathoning, and actually the Twin Cities this year in the marathon they had there last October, he was battling Marty Freilich for the position. Freilich, the veteran, threw a few surges at him. He softened Gompers up. He made it tough for him then to fall into a rhythm. So you wonder if Gompers has learned something since that time. As you now see Fitzinger, number 2, has passed Kurp. Boy, I tell you, Fitzinger is one of those guys you always want to look behind you because you don't know where he's going to come from.
Well, right now, Fitzinger is like Larry Bird with the ball with 3 seconds to go. When he comes up to Gomper's shoulders, he knows he's in big trouble. They both spent time in the Boston area, and they both know what each other has. It's the veteran 32-year-old Fitzinger right there against the 24-year-old Gompers.
And so Fitzinger starting now to make his move. Let's go to Larry Rossin.
Gary, the person who has been pretty stiff-legged for the last couple of miles has been Mark Kurp. Remember we talked about that communion of spirit and drawing from each other, and it was Fitzinger and also Paul Gompers that ran together and worked their way up together to take on Kurp. Kurp has now been lost. The guy that looks the best to me right now is Wile E. Coyote himself, Pete Fitzinger, and he's running comfortably right now. Gompers knows he's got to get away from Fitzinger, and that's why he is, in my opinion, virtually all out here now. He's got the strength to carry himself well from all those 160-mile weeks he put in, but he does have to worry about the speed of Fitzinger. Fitzinger is no longer grabbing onto his side. I saw him do it for the better part of 10 miles, back about 150 yards behind the lead pack. This is going to be a wonderful battle. Fitzinger still looks fine. We have just 3 miles to go. By the way, let me add one thing. The wind here on this last 10 miles we thought would not be a problem. Sometimes it was a crosswind and it was not a factor. Other times, for miles at a stretch, it has been in their face. Hence the reason for the time being slower than we anticipated on the back end of this course.
So Fitzinger, as you mentioned, looking strong. Kurp looked real heavy-legged, and he has now dropped back considerable distance. By the way, Fitzinger this year went to New Zealand to train during our winter months. His wife, Christine, is from there, so evidently going to New Zealand has helped him because now he has come on strong, and you can see he's now starting to overhaul Gompers. This is a battle for third, less than 3 miles to go in the ticket that they hope will get him to Seoul, South Korea.
I don't think Fitzinger wants to take the lead. If he goes into the lead, that's going to answer a lot of questions for me. I think he will sit here on Gompers, maybe even until the last 100 yards, because the history is this. Pete Fitzinger let Alberto Salazar get ahead of him with a few hundred yards to go in the '84 trials, and then just has that speed over the last 100 to reel in Salazar. We saw in last year's New York City Marathon how he was able to dig in the last 100 yards and win the race. So with the wind and everything else out there, he might just decide to play with fire and wait and risk it on a final kick, but obviously he knows he's got too much and Gompers doesn't have it. Now, I think he's going after second place. It's been the well-paced race for Fitzinger, the veteran, that's going to win the spot on the team today. He could still get second.
Well, you know, Gompers has had these moments where he's dropped back before and then surged, but right now he does not look like he is going to do that once again. At Fitzinger now in the number 3 position, he is about 1 minute until the 24-mile mark. Now you wonder if he can overhaul those 2 leaders, Conover and Eystone. That Fitzinger, who is so shrewd, they call it pulling a Fitzinger when he makes these particular moves. That's how well known he is for his tactical racing, how smart he is and how strong he is. And he looks awfully good right now, Marty.
He certainly does, and we've had some contact with Mark Conover's relatives in California, unknown as he is. The fact is, though, that this race is tape delayed in California, and his folks didn't even know he was making the team. So I think they'll be watching, and a lot of people in San Luis Obispo will be turning on their sets that maybe weren't planning to watch the race this afternoon. He just graduated with a master's degree in city regional planning. Now Fitzinger is trying to relax now. I think he'll be taking a few looks over his shoulder to see if anyone's coming, to try and rest up after the 2 battles he's had now with Gompers and Kerp, and we don't see Mark Kerp there anymore.
He has dropped back. You can see Gompers every once in a while appearing behind Fitzinger. Fitzinger, in our last estimation, is 45 seconds behind the 2 lead runners. Now you can see the perspective as you look down the course, and the 2 guys, Eystone and Conover. It looks further than that, doesn't it, from there? 45 seconds. So Fitzinger at this particular point, what do you think, Marty? Can he overhaul these 2 guys? Does he have that kind of a kick?
I think it'll be much closer at the finish than it is right now. I think Fitzinger is going to make sure that he's got 3rd place wrapped up, get a little bit closer to the finish, and then start to pull the stops out.
He's got a long ways to go, and these 2 guys now continuing to kind of parry back and forth, making surges. Right now it's Conover, number 70, as you look at Fitzinger. Fitzinger has been one of those guys, though, that you never want to count out. He was a surprise in Buffalo in '84 at the 13-mile mark. He took the lead, even got ahead by as many as 150 meters, and then beat Salazar at the very end, and then finished 11th in the Olympics, the highest finish for any American. 2 miles to go now. 2 miles in the battle for Seoul.
Well, it looks like Ed Eystone. It looks good for the Americans in Seoul, I would say. Ed Eystone, one of 6 or 7 runners who have moved up from the track with good credentials, who could become the 2:08, 2:07 marathon type, and also the find in Conover. This is only his 2nd marathon. He ran 2:18 at the Cal State Marathon in bad conditions. So who knows how much better he can get by Seoul. And we have our solid man in Pete Fitzinger, who has already been to the Olympics once. So this looks like a pretty good team if it stays that way. Fitzinger, once again, coming through on the day of the big race.
Well, you got to keep in the back of your mind a position on the Olympic team, and when you're hurting right now at this particular stage, you got to think that $50,000 will go to the 1st place finisher, 25 to 2nd, 20 to 3rd. And right now, when you're hurting like this, that's pretty good motivation to have. And so Conover, number 70, with the lead. Eystone in the number 2 position. There's Fitzinger. Fitzinger holding on to number 3 right now. Gompers and Kerp have dropped back. So right now, if it stays the way it is, that's our Olympic team. Conover, Eystone, and Fitzinger. You can see now as they have headed back in, they'll be approaching the Jersey State Park. The last half mile will be over the grass. They'll be running in an area that will really not a very beautiful area by any stretch of the imagination, and not very many people will be along the course. So it's going to be one of those self-motivating things that brings you into view. And when they get into view, there could be as many as 50,000 people in the Liberty State Park waiting for the finish.
Well, I don't think at this point that there's any agreement between these two runners to work together. You see Ed Eyestone drifting from side to side behind Conover, and the reason he's doing that is to try and stay out of the wind. Eyestone is just going to let it go as long as he possibly can and then try and sprint by.
It's an amazing thing to me as I watch this race and I watch who was trying to be the clear-cut favorite, how fragile marathon racing is. We saw Donikowski, we've seen Peterson drop out, the guys who were favored. Here's an unknown who has come to the forefront. Maybe this is the new age of marathoning. A lot of people concerned about marathoning in the United States. We haven't had anybody under 2:10 in the last 5 years. Really, the last big year for the Americans was in '83 when they won the Boston Marathon. There's the time, 2:04:03. Again, the course record is 2:11:40 by Donikowski. They go under the New Jersey Turnpike once again as they retrace their steps. And you can see now there's some encouraging signs on the side, some youngsters running alongside. There are 20 seconds now between these two guys and Fitzinger in the third position.
So Fitzinger's made up of 10 seconds in the last mile. I don't think he's going to be able to catch him with less than 2 miles to go, but the real thing is that the battle for first, $25,000 difference, and this prize money is going to enable these runners who make the team to not have to run races between now and Seoul and reward them for being conservative in their racing leading up to them. Anybody who's done well, Fitzinger, a prime example, has not run very often over the last 12 miles, over the last 12 months. They've given up money that could have been made by road racing, and the prize money is going to allow them to train well towards Seoul, not have to race. They've got 5 months. This is really the best situation both from the scheduling standpoint and the financial standpoint that we've been able to provide for the American marathoners ever in the history of our marathoning.
Well, as you look at these two guys, you got to sum it up this way. We know that Eyestone has great speed. In other words, he had the best 10K of anybody in the field. We do not know what Conover can do in a sprint when they come down to the end, and that's got to wear a little bit on Eyestone. I know that Conover knows the capabilities of Eyestone.
Yes, obviously Eyestone has better credentials at the shorter races, but he said himself earlier in the week when asked if his superior speed gave him an edge, he said, at the end of a marathon, that's all taken away. And I can remember in Rotterdam in 1983, Rob DiCostella, who was one of the slowest men as far as leg speed, outkicked Carlos Lopez in the last 100 meters because at the end of a marathon, your natural ability has been taken away by the hard work that the other men have put in and by the conditions of the course.
There's the 25-mile mark. You can see it painted on the surface. And so now it comes down to 1 mile, 385 yards, which can seem to be an eternity if you're trying to win this race. Both of them shoulder to shoulder. And what a finish we're going to have. Now you got to think, when do you kick? You figure that Eyestone on the 6.2, the 10K is the fastest, but what would he be if you come down to the last half mile or maybe even the last 100 yards? Who has the best foot speed? Boy, what jockeying for position and what drama is starting to develop now as they come close now to the Liberty State Park.
Ed Eyestone has run a race that has finished in Liberty State Park. He ran a 5-mile race here, so he'll be familiar with the conditions that they will meet over the last 3/4 of a mile, and that will be that they will run across a cinder path and then get on a macadam path along the water, and then for the last 190 yards they will be on grass again, so he'll be familiar with that. And he's let a little bit of a gap open up here. Whether it's the sly fox allowing it to happen or he's really hurting is something we'll have to conjecture. Here's both sides of the thing. If you feel you can outkick the guy, you let him get 10 or 15 yards like this, so he thinks he's put you away and he starts to cut back because you're confident that in the last 200 yards you can make back up this 15 yards with a surprise sprint and go flying by him. On the other hand, even as I speak, if you let the gap get this big, you may not have it. Conover, in his second marathon, seeming to put Ed Eyestone away as we watch. 1 mile to go now. Ed Eyestone would not be playing any cat and mouse games here. It looks like Conover has gotten the better part of this pacing deal that they have made over the last 5 miles.
Very surprising. I mean, it's almost to the point now where he's lost contact with Conover at this late stage of the race. That would be disastrous. What's going to be interesting is when they make this turn, you'll see it coming out under the New Jersey Turnpike and head back in. You can see the grassy section. They will get an emotional lift, I'm sure, as they see the Manhattan skyline in the background, as well as the fact there are so many people there waiting to see who's going to appear in the lead. And I'll bet you there was very few people in that group that would said Conover, number 70, would be leading the pack when they come into the grassy portion of this race. And there he is. He's looking back. He's getting ready now to turn very soon into the grassy portion, which is about a half mile to go. And looking back, it looks like Eyestone may not have a lot left to be able to overhaul him at all. Very interesting the way he moved away. It was almost a subtle move, wasn't it?
It certainly wasn't a big rush. It was a gradual wearing down of Ed Eyestone, and now he's on the cinder path with about 600 yards to go. And he has broken the race wide open, and this is a surprise which no one waiting at the finish line would have expected when they left over 2 hours ago.
Now remember, the course record is 2:11:40. As now he's on that asphalt portion. When he makes the last turn into the grass, he has about 100 and 190 yards to go. He looks back to see if, in fact, Eyestone's there, and he's not. So Conover, out of Humboldt State, as Marty mentioned, only his second marathon. An unknown marathoner, and I tell you, he's going to be on the front pages tomorrow, and of course, he will have a ticket to Seoul representing the United States, as will Eyestone, and of course, we'll have to update you on who's in that third position. The last we had was Fitzinger. There he is, Fitzinger. He is in third position, so right now it'll be Conover, Eyestone, and Fitzinger representing the United States in Seoul. Conover has to be buoyed by the fact he's looking into that skyline area. He's coming down the home stretch, the encouragement from some 50,000 people. Now let's watch as he comes in now to the home stretch. See the time, 2:10:56. Again, the course record, 2:11:40. You wonder if this guy understands what he's accomplished here today. He must not even be aware of what's happening. What a fantastic story it's been from Conover, 27 years of age. Coming out of nowhere, running so well, and right now trying to finish strong. He looks back again to see if Eyestone is making any move at all. You can see Eyestone considerably back. Encouragement now along the side. He'll be making that turn here very quick back into the grass. And here he goes. He's 180, 190 yards away from the finish. And there is a first display of any emotion by Conover. I think he's begun to realize this may be his. It is not a new course record, but first place to Conover. Here comes Eyestone out of Brigham Young University in second. Conover unofficially the time of 2:12:24.
Ed Eystone with a terrific race. Conover kept his game face on until the last 100 yards. He wasn't going to start celebrating early. And Eystone, who wanted to get revenge on the race, got it. And Fitzinger, who said for 2 years, I've still got it, I'm just keeping a low profile, comes up with the goods once again.
So he will be the other member of that Olympic team. Gompers is running in the number 4 position. He would be the alternate if he holds on, but there's the Olympic team, and here comes Gompers. Gompers would be the alternate. This is also would be good for $15,000 in prize money. He's been the runner today who at moments looked like he was coming apart and then looked strong at other times.
He really held together well. His mental capabilities are really proven now. At 24 years old, he was the second youngest man in the field, running 160 miles a week to do this. So he comes along and really would be a tremendous selection if one of the first 3 should get injured between now and Seoul. And I believe I saw Fitzinger grab Eystone and say, who won? I think that is the question of the day. Who won?
Who was that guy?
Conover.
Who was that guy? So Gompers will come in, so Fitzinger will be going to his second straight Olympics. Of course, Eystone, along with Conover, will make their first appearance for the United States.
You know, it's fortunate that the man who got 4th is also the youngest. He'll only be 28 4 years from now, and maybe there is some justice in this.
And so, the young man from Oxford University in 4th place. So, the first 4 positions have been determined. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
If you want to pull for the U.S. Olympic team as they prepare to take on the world in Seoul, pull out your Visa card. Because whenever you use Visa, we'll make a donation to the team. So pull for the team with Visa. And if you go to the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, bring plenty of time and your Visa card. Because the Olympics don't take place every year. And this year, the Olympics don't take American Express. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be.
The guys around the office think I bought a Buick Regal because it's so beautifully designed and so comfortable. And they're right. But they also think I got a raise because in their eternal wisdom, they think this Regal cost $2,000 or $3,000 more than it did. If that's what you think, go see your Buick dealer. You'll find Regal is priced with T-Bird and Cougar, even less. But don't tell the guys around the office.
The great American look belongs to Buick.
Right now, the only thing that would taste better than a nice cold one is a cold filtered one.
Miller Genuine Draft. Hot, isn't it?
Yeah, if you want a beer whose real draft taste hasn't been changed by heat pasteurization, we've got it down cold. Cold filtered Miller Genuine Draft.
It's as real as it gets.
Surprising, Mark Conover is the winner of the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials. Ed Eystone in the number 2 position. And a man who will return for the Olympics after winning in '84 and 3rd, Fitzinger. Let's now go to Larry Rossin.
Well, 100 years ago, the event was known as Go As You Please. It later became the marathon, but certainly, Mark Conover, you were the one person today who went as he pleased. Congratulations on your race. Did the wind out there bother you at all?
There were stretches where it was bad, but there were also stretches excuse me, where I was able to really relax. So as a whole, no, it didn't really affect me. My qualifying marathon was running a veritable hurricane in Sacramento, so I was prepared for any conditions.
How long have you been running well in your own mind? This is a big surprise. It's a breakthrough by over 6 minutes. Everybody's kind of surprised at what you did here today.
Yeah, well, my other marathon would have probably been about a 2:12 or 2:13. As I said, it was in bad conditions. My form, the economy, the way I run is geared towards this race. I have success at 10K, but I have a shuffle stride that's well suited to the marathon. I knew it all along, and today proved it.
Most everybody was betting, including myself, on Eystone winning this thing. Were you surprised that you were able to outkick him?
Wasn't so much a kick as I luckily just had more strength over the last half mile. And Ed and I, we helped each other out. We realized that we were both on the team at about 23 miles and ran together.
We talked, Eddie, about the communion that goes on and sometimes the spirit up there of working with each other. When you moved up with him for the final time, is that the plan?
Yeah, I said to Mark, go behind me for a while. he obliged, and then he went by me, and I would have liked to have shared the lead a little more, but I just didn't have it towards the end. And frankly, at the end, I didn't care. I wanted to make the team. I didn't care if I won it or not. And Mark definitely had more at the end because I tried to pick it up a little, and I could feel some cramps coming on. The last thing I wanted to do was cramp up at the last mile. So Mark ran a heck of a race.
What's the difference between your two relatively unsuccessful attempts at the marathon and finally breaking through today?
I have no idea. I was running scared from 19 miles on because that's where it hit me last time. I was just praying all the way, and the good Lord came through and made the team.
What did you guys talk about back and forth up there in the lead? You were together for the last 5 miles or so.
We were just, every now and then Mark would sneak a peek, or I'd sneak a peek over my shoulder to see how close the third place guy was. And our main concern was just to make the team, at least mine was. And Mark just ran well the last couple miles and pulled away and had a terrific win.
What happened in your last couple of miles other than cramps? Do you think it's the fact that your racing is more very short distances?
This definitely was, I was running over my head in this one. You know, I'm a 10K runner. I'm not a marathon runner. I still do not feel like a marathon runner, but I'm going to give it the best training I can and try to go into Seoul as prepared as possible.